Douluo, starting from the spirit of time worm, this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51, Shield and Sword Shield. Although he kept cursing Amon in his heart, Rommel's facial expression did not reveal this at all. He wanted to be as kind as possible. Amon pinched his monocle and chuckled. That little guy Yan Jin fought with you, right? What do you think of her? Rommel was stunned. She is yours. Well, I'm her half-brother. Amon replied. Half-brother? Rommel chewed on this word and said with a hint of apology, seemingly sincerely, sorry, I didn't know she was your sister. It doesn't matter. She is indeed a little impulsive. What I'm asking is what you think of her strength. Very strong, probably no worse than the Ice Cube martial arts genius from class 1 of the 3rd grade. Rommel praised. Bing. Cube, you mean Binglan, right? She has already lost to Yan Jin in Yan Jin's promotion test. Amon said flatly. What? Did she lose with Ice Cube? Rommel had a look of astonishment on his face. Binglan's talent is obvious to all, and he is recognized as a genius, but he was defeated by a seemingly younger child. This is really surprising. Rommel did not doubt the authenticity of Amon's words. There must be bystanders in the promotion assessment, and you can find out with a little inquiry. Me, Yan Jin, Lei Yin. Well, they are Yan Jin's younger brother, the blue-haired kid who bought you a drink, and Videal. What do you think of this combination? Amon had a faint look on his face. Smile. At this point, Rommel also understood Amon's purpose, and he wanted to invite himself to join their team. The respect on his face gradually faded, and the slightly sarcastic smile that had been suppressed began to reappear. You want me to join your team? Amon pushed up the monocle on his right eye and replied, I have the intention, but I'm not sure. I can't make a promise that you will definitely come with us, and I can't guarantee that you can stand on that stage with us, because those who can walk with me are not necessarily the best, only the most suitable. This is a two-way selection process, and what I can guarantee is that my team will definitely win the selection. As for whether you can stay in my team, it depends on outside interference and your own performance. He didn't promise too much. For people who are sensible and experienced enough, promises that are too generous may seem untrustworthy. Rommel returned to his previous look of being in need of a beating. Both his movements and demeanor were full of indescribable sarcasm. Then why should I choose you? Brady and the others at least knew they would give me enough benefits when they invited me. The corners of Amon's mouth raised slightly. Because of victory, I will definitely win the trials, and then the Soul Master competition. My goal is to win the competition. I think such an honor is attractive enough to you. Videal told me about your situation. I don't need you to sacrifice yourself for the team. You can get the most suitable soul ring in your mind. Rommel's eyes slightly condensed. If that's the case, I don't understand why you still invite me to specialize in defense. If I can be easily targeted, my value on the field will be just that. Amon adjusted his monocle with a smile on his face, very self-aware. At this moment, Rommel felt how others felt when they looked at him. His fists became hard. But what I need is not your value on the field. Maybe your value off the field, or your future value, is greater than you expected. Rommel held up his chin and said, you want me to work for you. It's not appropriate, but it can be said. Of course, this choice is also two-way and not mandatory. You can leave at any time. Sounds good. Rommel narrowed his eyes. Freedom is relative. You have the freedom to leave at any time, and I also have the freedom to abandon you at any time. Amon reminded softly. Indeed, I'll think about it again. Rommel did not give an answer. Amon nodded, as it should be. But before you finish thinking about it, do you want to have a fight with me first? Shit, this guy's trying to deal with me in every possible way. Rommel had this idea in his mind, and said with a smile, that's not necessary. The result is obvious. I can't beat you. When he thought of Amon's devilish behavior just now, he felt a little frightened. I don't use mental skills. Really? Rommel's eyes lit up. He was somewhat interested in Amon's team. He was also a little worried that Amon would underestimate him because of what happened just now, so he thought about getting it back during the battle. Of course, it was not about regaining the field. He knew that his attack power could not be said to be none. It could only be said to be slightly greater than 0. It was impossible to defeat the opponent, but he just wanted to remain undefeated and let Amon experience his invincible defense. Really? Amon nodded with a smile. Okay, let's do it here. Rommel showed his martial spirit, and the index finger and middle finger of his right hand came together to form a sword-like shape. A rectangular light curtain formed in front of him, completely protecting his direction. This is my martial spirit barrier. It is the martial spirit that is best at defending, Rommel said with some pride. Amon stretched out his index finger and thumb like a pistol. Boom. An air bullet exploded on the barrier, but there was no fluctuation at all. Not bad. Amon nodded, affirming Rommel's defense. Rommel was also startled. The attack just now was silent. He didn't notice it until it was blocked in front of his martial soul and exploded. He looked at Amon with a little more fear in his eyes. Originally, Rommel was planning to mock Amon if he couldn't break his defense, but now he changed his mind. He remembered that his grandmother reminded him that dogs that bite don't bark. Whether it was Amon's hidden mental influence or this silent attack, it was in line with Grandma's definition of not barking. However, Rommel couldn't help but say firmly, of course, as long as it's not a mental attack, this level of damage can only be said to be a trivial matter. Really? Amon outlined a smile. He stretched out his left hand and activated the soul bone skill. The light gray soul power spread out, forming a shield exactly the same as Rommel's, but the color was slightly different. What? You are? Rommel's eyes widened, and he was stunned. Amon stretched out his right hand again, and his soul power turned into a long sword. Rommel stared blankly at Amon's shield and sword configuration, and then stared blankly at his empty palm, and couldn't help but burst out a swear word. Shit. Amon held the shield and hit Rommel's barrier, and was repelled by the recoil force. Then he used the shield to resist the barrier, slowly exerting force, pushing Rommel back. It seems that your barrier can effectively deal with fast attacks and absorb part of the force into recoil, but it cannot counterattack against the slowly applied force, and it will be transmitted to the main body. Rommel's expression was even more surprised, as if he had seen a ghost. It was the first time he met someone who could figure out the characteristics of his martial spirit so quickly. Amon swung the sword and slashed forward, but of course he failed to break the barrier before Rommel could say it's useless. He saw the straight blade of the sword suddenly bend and stab from above. The tip of the sword scraped across his face, leaving a trace of blood. Rommel took a step back and covered the blood on his face. He didn't care about the wound on his face and looked at Amon with a bit of excitement and expectation. Chapter 52 Blackmail. Amon put away his sword and shield and pushed his monocle. How? Rommel was silent for a moment and said with some thought, are you demonstrating to me the direction of my soul ring selection? It seems that I'm not too stupid. Amon smiled. For the first time, Rommel felt that he still needed to improve in angering others. Then, what kind of soul beast do you think can bring me soul skills similar to yours? Rommel did not go into the details of what Amon's martial soul was and why it did not appear. He was only concerned about how to do it as Amon demonstrated. He originally wanted to obtain an offensive soul skill to make up for his shortcomings and enhance his own single combat power, but Amon showed him a way that was both offensive and defensive, and also had growth potential. Whether it was the defense of the shield or the attack of the sword, it could grow with the growth of his martial soul. This is not a free answer, Amon said calmly. Okay, I'll join your team. Rommel didn't use joining the team as a bargaining chip to trade with Amon in exchange for his help in obtaining such spirit rings, because he knew that, as long as he joined, Amon would help, even if he didn't say it. Otherwise the other party would not need to demonstrate it to him. You can't be considered a member of the team now, you can only be said to be one of my favorite candidates. Amon shook his head. Rommel suddenly had the urge to turn against me. I have already agreed, and you said you still want to consider it. It was obviously you who took the initiative to find me. Amon's last sentence made him endure this impulse. As for what spirit beast to hunt, maybe you can ask Yan Jin. Amon turned and left. Yan Jin. She knows the answer. Rommel felt a toothache when he thought about dealing with that red-haired kid who was like a powder keg again. Yan walked on the street and chased in the direction where Yan Jin and Rommel left by constantly asking passers-by point, but he still lost them point at this moment. He was standing in a small alley, staring blankly at the road ahead blocked by the wall point. He scratched his head and turned back point. Just as he walked out of the alley, a man suddenly lay on the ground a few meters ahead and wailed, "Ouch, my leg." Yan ignored it. He was not an Aussie person. The short and thin young man who fell to the ground saw Yan walking around and rolled on the ground twice with his body sideways, rolling to Yan's feet. "Ouch, my leg, don't run, you hit me, you must be responsible." The young man grabbed Yan's trouser leg and shouted loudly. Glancing at him coldly, Yan's eyes became dangerous. He had seen this kind of blackmail method when he lived in the West Street of Shuangai City. Although he moved away from that chaotic area later, he and Yan Jin had dealt with Ma Wen's men a lot, so he was naturally not a good baby. His gentleness and kindness were never given to people who had malice towards him. "You said I hit you? Then where did you hurt?" Yan asked softly. "My leg, calf." The blackmailing youth held his right leg in pain. Yan's mouth twitched because the man just held his left leg. So unprofessional. "Right leg. Okay, I'll compensate you." Yan nodded. The youth was a little surprised. It was the first time he encountered such a situation. Wouldn't most people first argue that they didn't do it? Could this kid be a fool? Before he could wonder for too long, a sharp pain came from his right calf, and he let out a heart-wrenching scream. He opened his eyes and saw that his right calf was obviously deformed. Yan stepped on his calf and broke it. "Here, this is compensation." Yan threw down a copper coin and said softly. After a pause, he continued to ask, "Are you injured anywhere else?" The youth did not answer. His lips were pale and his eyes were terrified. 3 tall, shirtless, and ferocious men surrounded him, staring at Yan fiercely. The leader looked at the miserable state of the blackmailing youth and felt dignified. However, he still said with a stiff face, "You are the one who hurt my brother. Well, sorry, I have already compensated him. How about you check again? See where else he is injured?" Yan kindly reminded. Without waiting for the leader to answer, the young man lying on the ground sat up and shouted, No, I'm fine. There is no injury." "Shut up." The leader glared at him fiercely and then looked at Yan. "Don't think you can do whatever you want just because you are a soul master. This is BD City. You should be a student, right? Wait for me. I will go to the city lord's mansion to complain, and I will go to the academy to complain about you." Yan didn't waste time talking to him and directly put his hand on his arm. Accompanied by a burst of electric sound, the leader of the blackmailing gang twitched and fell to the ground. The other two turned around and wanted to escape, but before they ran a few steps, they fell in a flash of lightning. Noticing the occasional glances from passers-by, Yan dragged the 4 of them one by one into a small alley. He slapped the leader to wake him up roughly, and with silvery white currents jumping from his fingertips, Yan pointed at his forehead and said, "Next, I'll ask you questions, and you answer them. Don't play tricks." Feeling the current just a few inches away from his forehead, the leader's hair stood on end, and he nodded cautiously. Okay. Who ordered you here?" The leader of the gangsters trembled and said, No one ordered us to come here. We are watching you." The leader of the gangsters wailed. Yan put his hand on his shoulder, and the lightning flashed in his hand. "Think it over before answering. I know the beliefs of people like you very well. When you meet someone you can't afford to offend, you will beg for mercy first, instead of continuing your original plan to blackmail people. You know I'm a soul master. When I saw his appearance, I was already scared." Yan pointed at the young man who fell to the ground and pretended to be injured at the beginning. After a slight pause, he continued, "But you didn't back down, which is a bit suspicious. What gives you the courage to blackmail a soul master who is not easy to talk to?" The leader smiled with difficulty. "No, really not. You are waiting for someone. waiting for the person who ordered you. It should be the city guards, or the teachers of the academy, who have jurisdiction over me, right? Yan interrupted. The leader's pupils shrank, and he said awkwardly, you worry too much. We really just want to extort money. What? A pity. There is nothing I want to hear. The thunder light was bright, and the screams of the gangsters mixed with the sound of thunder and spread out. Yan did not stay for long, climbed over the wall, and left the alley from the other side. In less than 2 minutes, a team of guards hurriedly arrived. The captain leading the team was still a low-level soul master when they arrived. They saw only 4 charred bodies in the alley. Captain, there are no signs of fire burning around. And it must be a soul master who killed them. A guard checked the scene and shouted, shut up and clean up the bodies for me quickly. The captain of the guard said coldly, okay, sir. The newly joined guard replied obediently. He turned around, pinched his eye sockets, and immediately started to move the bodies. That others were a little taboo, appearing very active. The captain of the guard looked very unhappy. He gave a few instructions to an older guard, and left in a hurry. Chapter 53. Behind the scenes. In a magnificent hotel in the southern district of BD City, a young man with blonde hair, blue eyes, handsome face and gorgeous clothes was holding a glass of light red fruit wine, and leaning on the back of the chair he was holding the wine glass in his right hand, and his left hand was naturally placed on the armrest of the chair, looking calmly ahead. Holmes, did you mess up? In front of him, the guard captain responsible for handling the bodies of the blackmail gang looked a little gloomy. In terms of the result, it is true, but it is not my fault. That kid is simply a desperado. It only took a few minutes from the beginning of the operation to the time I arrived at the scene, but in the end all I saw were the bodies of the gangsters. According to the laws of the Northland province, the city guard does have the right to adjudicate on such matters. If I catch him at the scene and both parties are arguing, I can also invite them both to the Public Security Bureau in the name of mediating the dispute. But in this situation, if I want to move him, I have to name him a suspect. These are 2 completely different things. The former just makes him get entangled in trivial matters and has no time to practice. At most, it makes him extremely annoyed, but the latter situation is an unending hatred. I don't want to be regarded as the enemy of life and death by a powerful soul master. The young man tapped the wooden handrail with his index finger and asked, can't we just let him cooperate with the investigation? Guard Captain Holmes shook his head. The law favors the soul master. He is just cooperating with the investigation. He can refuse unless I directly point the finger at him. The young man was silent for a moment and said tentatively, then just treat him as a suspect and arrest him. Holmes looked at him with an idiot look. I said, I don't want to fight to the death with a powerful soul master, and the price you gave me is not worth it. Feeling a little annoyed by his gaze, the young man said with a trace of anger in his tone, then how do I explain this to Cousin Brady? I promised with all my heart that I would cause trouble for them. That's your business. Holmes shrugged. Is this the way you approach things? Holmes said coldly, Abbott, if you have any dissatisfaction, let Brady come and say it himself. I'm not your subordinate. Also, a word of advice, don't take it for granted that the people you are dealing with will play by your rules. 4. That kind of desperado, directly using the most primitive means of violence is what they like and are best at. After saying that, Holmes stood up and left the room. The city lord of the North City is not a local feudal noble, but an official directly appointed by the Shiandao royal family. To a certain extent, it plays a role of controlling the northern nobles and preventing noble rebellion. The city guard is an armed force directly subordinate to the city lord, and the nobles cannot intervene at all without sufficient reasons. Therefore, Holmes does not need to worry too much about the feelings of these nobles, not to mention that Brady and Abbott are only heirs and not real lords. Let's go. Holmes calmly ordered the 2 men guarding the door. Yes, sir. The young guard unconsciously tapped the upper and lower edges of his eye sockets with his index finger and thumb, then immediately put them down. After they left, the sound of broken wine glasses was heard in the private room. Although the school also provides dormitories, most noble students either rent or purchase residences outside the school. Vidal purchased a house in BD City, and the area was quite large. Amon Yan Jin and Yan also stayed at his house temporarily. After Yan returned, he told Amon what happened. It's a small thing, don't take it to heart. After hearing this, Amon said nonchalantly, maybe Brady has made some moves. He is still using Vidiel as his imaginary enemy and wants to weaken Vidiel's prestige by suppressing us. If you really get entangled with those gangsters, you will be in trouble. Only when the city guard comes, because once you enter the public security management office with them, it's not that simple to come out smoothly. At that time, it will be a competition of connections and backgrounds, which are the areas where the nobles are best at. As for Yan Jin's teacher Walter, since he didn't make any big announcement about accepting Yan Jin as his disciple, and there wasn't even a hint of news coming out, it means that he deliberately blocked the news and didn't want too many people to know about it for the time being. He will not intervene until the critical moment. There seems to be no need to hide things like accepting a disciple. Is this another test? Yan scratched his chin and guessed Walter should have other plans. This has nothing to do with us. Your soul power level is a bit low. The best thing you should do now is to hurry up and improve it. Amon reminded. Yes, I understand, Mr. Amon. Yan nodded. In the spacious reception hall of the City Lord's mansion, City Lord Cubero sat on the main seat, leaning against the back of his chair and dozing off. In front of him, Guard Captain Holmes respectfully reported the situation. Sir Cubero, I have followed your request and rejected Brady and others' request to use the power of the city guard to target certain students in Northland College. Cubero's face was expressionless and his eyes were a little hollow. He said calmly, the city guard itself doesn't serve them, right? This, Holmes said hesitantly with cold sweat streaming down his forehead. I think it's just a small matter, so I didn't refuse it before. Okay, you don't have to explain. Cubero's calm voice sounded. Don't you think the nobles in the north are too tacit? Tacit? Holmes was puzzled. Cubero continued. Yes, the Northland College is a good example. The nobles controlled the selection rights of the Soul Master competition, forcing talented students to rely on their wings. They tacitly cut off the channels for many outstanding students to be loyal to the royal family, causing a large number of talents to be lost. You say, is this my dereliction of duty? Holmes remained silent. These were not things he could comment on. Cubero laughed. Why do I say so much to you? Okay, go down. Remember your duties. You are serving me and the royal family of the Shiandao Empire. Yes. Holmes respectfully left the city lord's mansion. After he left, Cubero's already stiff body seemed even more sluggish, and his originally empty eyes completely lost their luster. His entire body suddenly turned into invisible silk threads that scattered in all directions. These silk threads slithered like little snakes, and finally gathered in the hands of a figure wearing a black cloak. Deeper in the mansion. The silk threads also made a little halo and disappeared. The figure wearing a cloak whispered to himself in a slightly old voice, the tacit understanding of the nobles is only when they reach a consensus on the distribution of interests. If the original distribution of interests is accidentally broken, then before the opinions are reunited, they will be a group of scattered sand. Chapter 54 Compensation Expenses. The disappearance of a gang of gangsters in Beatty City is like dropping a stone on a wide lake, causing an insignificant ripple, and then calming down. Brady's side seems to have died down. There is no further action, and Amon has no intention of counterattack. This is meaningless, of course. This is also related to the fact that the number of meetings between the two parties is quite limited. Amon bought a small house without Yan Jin and Yan's knowledge, and he stayed in the house for a long time to practice. The clone goes to school instead of the main body, spends time in the library, borrows a large number of books every day, and returns them the next day. Yan is practicing hard at the mimicry training ground. Walter asked Zhu Yaozi to give the three of them access to all mimicry training grounds in the academy and bear the related expenses. Vidiel also changed from his normal state, no longer keen on socializing, and no longer competing with Brady for those outstanding students. The two sides had no points of conflict for the time being, and there were naturally fewer conflicts. The only one still jumping up and down was Yan Jin point. Although she didn't like school very much, she was present at almost every practical class, and within a few days she had competed with half of the classmates in the class. Not only that, she also set her sights on students outside the class almost every day. News comes out that someone was beaten by rock embers, a ring was melted by lava, or a fire broke out somewhere. Point at the end of the month, ZHU Yao's he came to the Wuhan main hall in BD City and handed the bill to Walter. Sir Walter, this is the expense of the person you entrusted me to take care of this month. Please settle the account. Walter took the bill calmly, and when he saw the numbers on it, a look of confusion appeared on his face. Is there an extra zero? Even if you follow my instructions and prepare a nutritious meal made of soul beast meat for them and continue to use mimic training, there shouldn't be so many. ZHU Yao's he replied respectfully. Less than 10% is spent on food and mimicry practice, and more than 90% is spent on repairing teaching buildings, repairing flower beds and lawns, or paying medical expenses. The academy's training ground is a place for students to compete, so the students are not responsible for any damage to the arena. But if fighting occurs in other areas where the use of force is prohibited, students will need to compensate for the damage to facilities and equipment. The child named Yan Jin has destroyed a total of 13 walls in the past few days, and one building even collapsed because of it. There have been 16 fires in flower beds and lawns because of her, and a total of 21 people have been hospitalized by her. Walter's face twitched and he fell silent. He said slightly helplessly, okay, I understand, sister. Will it be bad if you do this? Lei Yin asked a little worriedly. Yan Jin waved his hand casually and said with a smile, it's okay. I want to see his attitude. 6 years ago, he thought about accepting me as his disciple, but he didn't take it as seriously as he does now. He didn't even want to take you away with him at that time. I want to see how far he can tolerate me now. Besides, as Amon said, the result was not bad, but his vague threats before were really annoying. This can be considered a small revenge. Yan Jin has always acted vigorously and resolutely. In her code of conduct, there has never been a saying that a gentleman's revenge is never too late. Amon's voice sounded in their hearts. Yan Jin, go to the spirit hall. Walter has something to do with you. Hey, he's in a hurry. He's in a hurry. Yan Jin smirked. When Yan Jin came to Wuhan Hall, he saw Walter holding a teacup, sitting on a lounge chair, leisurely basking in the sun, just like an ordinary rich old man. Old man, what do you want from me? Yan Jin asked knowingly. Do you have anything to say about this? Walt casually threw the bill on the coffee table to Yan Jin. After taking the bill, Yan Jin glanced at it and saw that the number on it was not much different from her estimate. What's there to say? It's just a few fights, but I haven't lost a single time. The fact that Yan Jin emphasized that she won the fight also shows that she is very talented. She has basically accepted the fact that Walter is her teacher, but she is still a little awkward. Walter smiled and shook his head and said kindly, I have no intention of blaming you, nor am I against you tempering yourself in battle. It is also your freedom to choose to use force to communicate with your classmates. It's just that I want to remind you that the resources I can give you are limited. If too much is wasted in unnecessary places, it will be both my loss and your loss. Perhaps half of the compensation expenses should have been turned into gold soul coins, or something else, lying in the space soul guide on your finger. The smile on Yan Jin's face gradually solidified. Seeing the change in her expression, the smile on Walter's face became even bigger, as if Yan Jin's missing smile was transferred to his face. He took a sip of tea. Perhaps you should learn from your half-teacher and half-brother how to analyze the interests rationally. However, if you are really as rational as him, I will not accept you as a disciple. Walter pointed to the 3 small wooden boxes on the coffee table and said, this is a medicinal material that I specially found to promote the speed of soul power. The big one is yours. The other 2 small boxes are for your elder brother and younger brother respectively, as a small favor from me to them. Okay, I get it. I won't be petty anymore. Yan Jin curled his lips. He looked at Walter, who looked gentle and kind, and whispered, "Thanks, old man." She knew that this kind of medicinal material that can promote the circulation of soul power must be very precious, which can increase the speed of cultivation in the market. Even if you have money, you may not be able to buy it. At least she has never heard of anything like it before. As your master, this is what I should do. You must work hard to practice. Don't lose too badly in the Soul Master competition 3 years later. When you meet the golden generation, you will know what a true genius is. Lose? Who do you look down on, old man? We won't lose, Amon promised. Yan Jin has strong confidence in Amon. I'm curious, why do you have so much confidence in him? Although his talent is good, it is still much worse than yours. Walter was a little confused. The body that Amon took over was older and had low soul power. After a few years of catching up, his talent in the eyes of outsiders changed from ordinary to somewhat talented. However, such talent is nothing in front of a soul fighter like Walter. Only a titled figure like Yan Jin would be valued so much by him. You will know when the time comes. Yan Jin said no more. Then, I will wait and see, Walter said with a smile. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Slime. Yan Jin was walking on the forest path in the academy when a young man with a purple killer haircut and a punk-style coat studded with metal rings stopped in front of her. "Ah, you seaweed head?" Yan Jin raised an eyebrow. "I'm too busy these days and I don't have time to come to you. So you came to my door instead, little miss. I don't mean any harm. Speaking of which, maybe we will become your companions in the future. Don't you happen to be short of a defense-type soul master? Mr. Amon invited me," Rommel said quickly before Yan Jin could attack. "Oh, Amon said that. Let's have a fight first. Vidiel also fought with me." Fire came out of Yan Jin's hand. Wait. I admit defeat. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't have any offensive power, so in the end, I will lose." Rommel raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. "TCH, it's boring." Yan Jin was not interested. "What do you want from me, mister?" Amon said that your knowledge and theoretical level of soul beasts, soul rings and soul skills are very solid. Let me ask you about the hunting target for my 4th soul ring. Rommel complimented. "Ah, me." Yan Jin pointed at himself with his index finger, looking confused. Although she was happy to be praised for her solid theoretical knowledge, she still had some idea of her level. Rommel explained his situation. "Well, my martial soul is a barrier. Mr. Amon showed me another way to use the barrier. He used the substantial soul power to make a sword. This inspired me. If I change the shape of my spirit and make it look like a sword, I can also gain attack power. If it can be made into a sword, it can also be made into armor. Protect yourself from all sides, not just one side. For me, this is the best soul skill." "Oh, I understand." Speaking of this, Yan Jin gained confidence. She was the most familiar with changing the spirit form. Yan Jin nodded clearly, put his hands behind his back, and said seriously and solemnly, "You need to hunt a slime." "Slime?" Rommel looked confused. "What's the use of that useless soul beast?" Yan's and I's 2 soul rings were obtained by hunting slimes. "Because well, you won't understand, even if I tell you the details. In short, just kill the slimes. It's because you don't understand." Rommel complained secretly in his heart. He resisted saying the offending words, and asked again with some suspicion, "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm pretty sure." "What attribute does your martial spirit have?" "Barrier. It should be a defensive attribute. You need to hunt down a slime with a defensive attribute." Yan Jin's little face was full of seriousness. "What a fucking defensive slime? Is there a slime with this kind of attribute?" The corners of Rommel's mouth twitched. He held his chin and began to seriously think about the feasibility of this idea. The most common impression given by slimes is that they can change their body shape at will, which seems to suit their own needs. But slimes' bodies are all soft, right? Whether it's a normal water slime, a slime of other element, or even an earth slime, won't this affect me? Is the martial soul's defense powerful? Rommel asked. Hey, you don't know much about this, right? It's rare to be able to surpass others in terms of knowledge. Yan Jin is very dedicated. This gives her a greater sense of accomplishment than defeating a difficult opponent. I have seen a kind of slime that is all black, but once it is attacked, a layer of diamonds can form on the surface of the body. Amon calls it carbon slime, and it is a very special variant of earth-type slime. Yan Jin said confidently. She had encountered this kind of slime before, and when she was helping Lei Yin hunt for soul rings, she had burned one with one punch. Amon sat on the railing on the roof of the teaching building. He held the railing with his left hand and the lower edge of his monocle with his right hand, staring into the distance. The wind blew his robes, and the hem of his black robes flapped in the wind like a flag. TSK. Interesting. Vidiel said, you have any intention of disbanding the team and joining us? The corners of Amon's mouth tilted up slightly, forming a smile. Yes, classmate Amon, I'm very optimistic about your team, and want to make progress together with you. Aliyah came over and got close to Amon, exuding a faint fragrance. Why should I accept you? What can you bring to me? For this woman who had tested him as soon as they met and had a very realistic style of doing things. Amon did not hide it and directly asked the most critical question. Aliyah showed a sweet smile and answered with a silver bell-like voice. The academy's teams are basically composed of nobles, and the team captains are often the heirs of great nobles. No matter how talented civilian soul masters are, there will never be more than 2 in a team, and the number of nobles in your team seems to be low. The weight of Vidiel, the son of an earl, is not enough. You need to improve the number of nobles in your team so that you will not cause dissatisfaction among the school directors. If you don't want to eliminate the already confirmed civilian teammates, then you can only choose to increase the weight of the noble teammates and choose the heirs of the great nobles to join as much as possible. And I, the daughter of Marquis Fekris, although the power I can mobilize is limited in terms of status, I'm noble enough. At the end, Aliyah raised her voice slightly, seeming to be proud of her identity. After a pause, she continued, secondly, my talent is not weak, so I won't become a burden to you in the Soul Master competition. Finally, there are many civilian Soul Masters in the team, right? They shouldn't be able to afford the cost of the best mimicry training. Let me pay for it. If anyone wants to hunt soul rings in the future, I can also hire people to provide it help. Amon straightened his glasses, clapped his hands, touched his palms and praised. It's a very good offer, and it can save me a lot of trouble. If that's the case, what reason do I have to refuse? Welcome to join us, classmate Aliyah. Aliyah smiled and said, then please give me more advice, Captain Amon. By the way, I heard that Marquis Fekris is a staunch supporter of the royal family, right? Amon suddenly asked a seemingly irrelevant question. Aliyah suddenly became alert, and even the smile on her face stopped slightly. Soon, she returned to normal and answered very naturally, every noble in the north is bathed in the glory of Emperor Zuai, is grateful for his kindness, and is the most loyal and steadfast subject. Really? Amon stroked his glasses and did not continue the topic. After confirming the intention to cooperate, Aliyah said goodbye and left. She returned to her residence, took off her gorgeous aristocratic clothes, put on an ordinary black outfit, and then put a round hat on her head. Under the gaze of Amon one by one, Aliyah walked around in a large circle and came to the small door behind the Wuhan Hall. An ordinary looking middle-aged man came out and led her into the spirit hall. The images seen by the clones were transmitted to Amon's mind through relay transmission. He put his hand on the bottom edge of his monocle and sketched a smile. Interesting. Chapter 56 WALTERN-039 S arrangement. Amon. Yan Jin ran to the library with her, or her loud voice attracted many eye rolls, but once they saw her iconic fiery red hair, the students in the library suppressed their dissatisfaction. The nickname Mad Dog has long been quietly circulated among students, but as the owner of this title, Yan Jin himself knows nothing about it. What's the matter? Amon pushed up his glasses and asked with a smile. Yan Jin scratched his head and said, the old man said he would take me to a precious cultivation place that is very suitable for me. He said that you and Lei Yan can go there together, but the environment there may not be suitable for you. Let's go there together. I'm also very curious about a place that can track and call a treasured place to practice. Amon does not plan to use his body to get over, but only plans to send some clones. In fact, the person he is talking to Yan Jin now is not his true body point. After arriving in North City and stabilizing, his main body almost never left the house. When he walked around the outside world and handled various chores, it was a clone whose personality was close to that of his main body point. Improving soul power cultivation is his most fundamental and important purpose, and everything else serves this purpose. Point on the appointed day, Amon and the other three came to Wuhan Hall early. Point of course, at Walter's request, they put on a certain disguise before coming here. He didn't seem to want to expose his master-disciple relationship with Yan Jin. In fact, many people were investigating Yan Jin's background during this period, but Zhu Yaozi withstood the pressure from the nobles and did not reveal anything. Yu Xingsu also knew that there was a contra behind the three of them, but she didn't know who it was, and she wasn't a talkative person. Good morning, Mr. Walter. Amon greeted Walter, who was walking towards him. Hey, old man. Yan Jin waved his hand. Walter nodded to Amon first, and then touched Yan Jin's head. You should learn to respect your elders. Okay, I'll study tomorrow, Yan Jin said perfunctorily. She looked at the two luxurious but unassuming carriages prepared by Walter with bright eyes. The carriage is not coated with gold foil, nor is it embellished with gems, but the entire carriage is made of the torso of a plant-type soul beast of considerable age. Although it is not the real body, the keen observation ability brought by the third soul ring decryption scholar is still there. Amon judged that the coachmen sitting in the two cars were about the same strength as Yu Xingsu. There was a high probability that they were two soul emperors. One of them was the man who opened the door for Arya at the back door of Wuhan Hall a few days ago. Seeing Yan Jin's impatient look, Walter smiled and said softly, then let's set off. He said to the two people driving the carriage, sorry for bothering you, it's our honor. They both replied in unison. Stepping onto the carriage, a fragrance came, which was natural and clear, with a hint of vegetation. TSK, what a luxury. Amon took off his glasses, wiped them with a handkerchief, and put them back on. He and Lei Yan rode in the same carriage, while Yan Jin and Walter were in another. Mr. Amon, how long will we be gone? Lei Yan touched the soft animal skin spread on the wooden board and asked softly. Amon shook his head. I don't know. I will follow Walter's arrangement, but I think it won't be too long. After all, a contrast time is very precious. Walter has his own things to do, and I'm surprised that he is willing to take time to arrange such a trip for Yan Jin. On the other side, Yan Jin looked around, sometimes pulling the car window, sometimes lifting the animal skin mat. Old man, what kind of soul beast is this made of? It smells pretty good. Yan Jin twitched his nose, sniffing the smell in the carriage. Walter smiled and explained, a plant-like soul beast called Isotis tree, when exposed to direct sunlight, will emit a scent that can enhance your awakening, and at night, it will transform into a scent that can help people sleep. This characteristic remains in the wood after it dies, so it is very popular among the upper class, and is the first choice for making high-end carriages. Yan Jin suddenly asked, does it have a refreshing fragrance only when it is exposed to direct sunlight? What if there are continuous cloudy days? Won't you feel like sleeping when you sit on it? Walter shook his head. On cloudy days, in the morning, and in the evening, when the sunlight is not strong, it will not have any special effect. After a while of tossing, Yan Jin lost all the freshness and became quiet. The carriage made its way along the relatively smooth road. This time, no blind thieves gang came to block the way. Occasionally, some passing beasts were deterred by the aura of the two soul emperors and stayed away. Amon also felt a little bored after staying in a small, enclosed space for a long time. He supported the edge of the bed and climbed from the car window to the roof of the car on the other side. He saw Yan Jin, who was lying on the roof of the car in a large shape and sleeping soundly, with a hint of smile in his eyes. In the distance, huge blue-gray mountains are looming, and the stretching mountains are like giant dragons crawling. In the open wilderness, green grass that is only half as high as the calf is full of life. Occasionally, large animals such as bison appear, looking at the carriage from a distance, chewing young grass in their mouths. Looking relaxed. Amon sat on the edge of the carriage, his legs hanging naturally, relaxing his mind, and enjoying this rare leisure. He is just a clone, and his cultivation talent is at the same level as Uzayadagan's. No matter how fast he seizes the time, the results achieved are very limited. As for the hard work, let's leave it to the fully gifted body. After 2 days of travel, the mountains that were originally looming are now within reach. The peaks of Gyeosan go straight into the clouds, and half of them are hidden in the clouds. Looking at the towering peaks, Yan Jin exclaimed, "So big." After arriving at the foot of the mountain, the carriage was parked on the side of the road, and a Sol Emperor stayed to look after the vehicle. Walter led the 3 people and another Sol Emperor into the mountains. As he walked, he reminded, "Be careful, there are many powerful soul beasts in this meteor mountain range, some of which even I have to treat with caution and even have to retreat. Our destination this time is quite deep, so don't stay too far away from me, and you must be vigilant yourself. I may not be able to rescue you in the first time." "I know." Yan Jin nodded. The Sol Emperor followed and walked at the end, guarding against possible threats from the rear. Amon stroked his monocle. The number of time clones he brought with him was not large, and he did not know where the cultivation treasure land Walter mentioned was in the mountains, so he did not spread out the time clones immediately. It was not the first time for the people present to enter the forest. Even the youngest Lei Yin had several experiences of hunting soul beasts, and knew how to save physical and soul power in the forest. In the outermost area, where there were few soul beasts, there was basically nothing that could pose a threat to the group, so the speed of advancement was very fast. Chapter 57 Crater. After a day's progress, they climbed over one mountain after another. Lei Yin's face already showed visible fatigue, his lips were dry and his steps were sloppy. "Old man, how long will it take? I'm exhausted." Yan Jin glanced at Lei Yin and shouted loudly. Her voice was full of energy. "Not tired at all, almost. There, just ahead. You've said this 5 or 6 times. Yan Jin curled his lips. "You asked 5 or 6 times, so I had to answer 5 or 6 times. Walter smiled at the corners of his eyes. "It should be here soon," Amon said. "It's not far ahead." He could feel that the fire element in the surrounding air was obviously active, and the activity was a little unusual, comparable to the volcanic eruption in the Iron Heart Mountains in the evening. The sun gradually sets and night approaches, but the place where Amon and others were was still bright. They came to the top of a mountain peak, and in front of them was a fiery red lake. This is the crater of an active volcano. Thick lava flows below, and the rising heat carries the pungent smell of sulfur. "Here we are. Right here." Walter's expression remained normal. "Wow. This is much more exciting than that mimicry training ground in the academy." Yan Jin whistled. Amon covered his whole body with a layer of soul power membrane, and at the same time, the time clone parasitic on Lei Yin also protected Lei Yin in the same way. Looking at Amon's substantial soul power, Walter looked surprised. "Isn't this an ordinary martial arts skill of yours?" "Well, it's just an attached soul bone," Amon replied with a chuckle. "It has been completely integrated. No wonder you dare to show it so openly. Otherwise, even I would be tempted." "You have a great chance," Walter sighed, and at the same time, glanced warningly at the Soul Emperor with a greedy look on his face. The accompanying Soul Emperor lowered his head and gave up any small thoughts that he shouldn't have had in the first place. Walter led them down a stone staircase to a natural platform close to the lava lake. On the edge of the platform, you could reach out and touch the lava. The platform is natural, but the stone steps clearly are not. Walter said with a smile. "This is the training treasure land for fire attribute soul masters that I discovered in my early years. It is different from ordinary volcanoes. The fire element here is denser and more active, and the environment is more extreme. I didn't pay much attention to it before. It wasn't until I took Yan Jin as my disciple that I remembered that I could make use of this, so I sent someone to build such a staircase here." After listening to his words, Yan Jin suddenly felt a little at a loss. Walter treated her so well. The training site is located deep in the Meteor Mountains and is rich in fire element. Ordinary people may be burned if they approach it, Building stairs in such a dangerous place must be a large amount of work. Old man, you. She stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. Okay, no need to say more. Now, are you ready? I can't stay with you for too long, and it's very dangerous here. You can't stay alone, so the time for practice is limited. You must do it during this time. Increase soul power to level 30. When it came to practice, Walter became serious, changed from his usual kindness, and said with a bit of coldness, I will work hard. Yan Jin nodded solemnly. Kari, I'll leave the soul ring matter to you. Walter said to the Soul Emperor on the side. Yes. Kari nodded point regarding the selection of Yan Jin's third soul ring. Walter had already communicated with Amon, and the required soul beasts were already available in this area. Yan Jin summoned his martial spirit, stretched out his hand to test the temperature of the magma, just like testing the water temperature in a bath, and then jumped in with a pop. Her swimming skills are actually not very good, but the density of the magma is very high, so there is no need to exert any effort at all, and the body will float up naturally. Looking at Yan Jin having fun in the lava lake, even though Walter was well informed, he couldn't help but slap his face and sighed. What a terrifying martial spirit. Northland Advanced Soul Master Academy. Rommel lay on the lawn and looked at the lake as usual. The light dimmed, and the lake seemed deeper and deeper. The Black Swan family has returned to their nest. Feeling the cool evening breeze, he spit out a piece of grass in his mouth and prepared to return to the dormitory. A woman with a beautiful face and charming eyebrows walked over, and a silver bell-like voice sounded. Good evening, Rommel. Huh? Why did you come to me? Alia, I should have clearly refused. If you can't stand being lonely at night and want a man, I recommend you to go to the Duck House on South Street. They will definitely take care of you. Comfortable, whether it's words, actions, or demeanor. Rommel always makes people have the urge to beat him up. Alia's smile paused, then quickly recovered. If you didn't have this mouth, you might have friends. It's better to be polite to future teammates. Teammate? What do you mean? Rommel frowned. Literally. I promised Amon that I would help some members of the team obtain soul rings. You should have already decided on your fourth soul ring. I have a cousin who is also going to hunt for soul rings recently. If there is no problem, prepare yourself. Alia said with a smile. Rommel's eyes widened, and he said in disbelief, you would actually give up the team you worked so hard to build? You should have experienced Amon's strength yourself. Alia replied in a low voice. Rommel scratched his chin, and the sense of deja vu that made him want to beat him was reduced a lot. Okay, I admit that you are indeed very decisive. I need a carbon slime. Can you tell me about it? What is a carbon slime? Alia was also curious about this soul beast for the first time. Rommel described the characteristics of the carbon slime. Alia nodded. I will ask someone to help you. Keep an eye out. Northern City. At the entrance of the city lord's mansion. A young guard on duty put his hand down from his right eye socket and casually asked his colleague next to him. The mansion seems to be much quieter recently, and there are fewer people visiting. An older guard next to him replied, oh, it is said that the city lord is in seclusion for cultivation, and now the city's political affairs are decided by the city guard, the tax chief, and the housekeeper. Is that so? The young guard was thoughtful. Amon's body withdrew from the cultivation and felt the speed of the soul power in his body. The flow rate was constantly decreasing and gradually tended to normal levels. Looking at the small box of medicine sent by Yan Jin, he whispered to himself, it's a pity there are only so many. I don't know if I can exchange some more from Walter, but it seems that there is nothing to offer for the time being. He began to exchange information with the clones that could be contacted to understand what happened during the cultivation. Interesting. The city lord actually went into seclusion at this time. Chapter 58. Soul Master Yan Jin. Yan Jin sat on the platform. Her soul power kept flowing, and the rich fire element gathered around her, emitting a faint halo. Walter sat cross-legged on the steps above. These days, he personally waited by Yan Jin's side and almost never left. The soul power fluctuations on Yan Jin became more and more intense. After breaking through a certain threshold, she suddenly opened her eyes. Old man, I'm level 30. She stood up and shared the good news that made her happy. Good. Walter clapped his hands in praise. He was very satisfied with Yan Jin's talent point with the extreme training environment and the auxiliary training drugs Walter brought her. Yan Jin rose to levels in more than a month. Of course, this is also related to her own accumulation at level 28. Walter had a satisfied smile on his face. This training journey has reached the final stage. If we hunt another soul ring, we will be done. Yan Jin, remember the location here. I suspect there is something special under the volcano that caused such an abnormal environment. Even if it is not, in this special environment, it is easy to produce some treasures with fire attributes. When you become stronger, you can come and explore. Now, adjust your state. Let's go hunt soul beasts. Curry and Amon have already selected targets for you. Okay, old man. Yan Jin nodded. Walking up the steps, she came to the camp on the top of the mountain and saw Amon. She said proudly, haha, I will be a soul master soon. What soul beast should I hunt this time? Slime. Amon stroked his monocle and chuckled. Slime is indeed one of the options, but this time there is a better one. For your third soul skill, my suggestion is to choose the ability to adjust the temperature of the martial soul, flame. Slime also has such characteristics, but it is not very obvious. The temperature range it can adjust is relatively small. I originally wanted to find the ice fire ape, but I accidentally discovered a variant of the flowing flame lizard. It can retract the flames on its body and disguise itself as a large rock lizard. It is a better option. Adjust the temperature of the martial soul, right? Yan Jin repeated, and then kept reciting in his heart to deepen this idea. According to Amon's theory, the soul master's own desire is also a factor that affects the soul skills. She has an almost blind trust in Amon, so she accepted this suggestion without much thought. After leaving a deep enough idea in her heart, she clapped her hands and said, okay, let's go hunt for soul rings. Then, follow me. Curry is watching the lizard. Amon led the way in front. After walking a few kilometers, they came to a rocky wasteland. Curry was lying on a rock, staring at something in front. You are here. Seeing Yan Jin, Curry breathed a sigh of relief. Even with his cultivation as a soul emperor, he would feel tired after monitoring and tracking a soul beast for a long time. Thank you for your hard work. Walter nodded slightly. This is what I should do. Curry bowed. Is that it? Walter looked at the brown rocky ground in front of him, among which there was a long black rock that stood out a little. Walter frowned after estimating its age from its size. Its age is about 3,000 years, which exceeds the limit of obtaining the third soul ring. Amon smiled faintly. The so-called soul ring age limit is just a reference value. Due to different physical conditions, the maximum age that can be tolerated is also different. However, 3,000 years is indeed a bit high, and there is a considerable risk, feeling that the time worm in his body still exists. Yan Jin and Amon looked at each other, and then confidently said to Walter, teacher, it's okay, I can do it. Although he was a little worried, seeing Yan Jin's confidence, Walter did not dissuade him, but just reminded him, this is your own choice. Remember, there is no turning back. When absorbing soul rings, you can only rely on yourself, and others can't help. Yeah. Yan Jin nodded, and then walked forward. Feeling the threat, the originally black body of the flowing flame lizard suddenly brightened, and dark red lines covered the whole body. These lines became brighter and brighter, and flames ignited on its body, and it seemed that lava was flowing on its skin. It roared at the approaching people, and moved back slowly and cautiously. Korea. Walter said lightly. Yes. Korea immediately took action. A green spear appeared in his hand. He mobilized his soul power and threw the spear at the flowing flame lizard. Under the huge gap in strength, with just one blow, the flowing flame lizard lost half of its body. It twisted in pain and blood flowed all over the ground. Big fire. The surging magma engulfed it. The battle ended very quickly and smoothly, making Lei Yin feel unreal. Recalling the hardships and dangers of their past hunting soul rings, he couldn't help but sigh. Countless purple light spots drifted from the wreckage of the flowing flame lizard, and these light spots gathered in the air and condensed into a purple halo. Yan Jin sat cross-legged, waved his hand, and used his soul power to pull the soul ring. closer to himself. The others stood quietly beside her, waiting for the result. The surging soul power flowed into her body from the martial soul. Feeling the violent and powerful energy, Walter showed worry on his face. With the secret help of Amon's clone, Yan Jin absorbed the soul ring without any trouble. Hahaha, it worked. She jumped up from the ground, with her hands on her hips, and laughing. Feeling the powerful force surging in her body, her eyes showed an eager light. Looking at Walter, this one is too strong. Skip it. Kari, can't beat him. Skip it. Amon, a little coward. Skip it. Lion, stinky brother, it's meaningless to fight. Skip it. In the end, reason defeated her eager heart. She put away her fighting spirit, and tried her best to calm the surging soul power in her body. Amon touched the bottom edge of his glasses, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Just now, he thought Yan Jin was going to challenge him again. To be honest, he was really no match for Yan Jin with just a clone. The clone was only more than 20 levels, a level lower than the main body, and could only use 1 or 2 soul skills. Moreover, the soul was incomplete and the mental power was weak, so the effect of deception was only 1/10 of it. That's not right if the target is Yan Jin. It seems to still be useful. Congratulations, kid, you've taken another step forward on the road to becoming a soul master, Walter said gently. Hey. Yan Jin touched his head and smiled foolishly. Thank you, old man. Okay, let's go back to BD City, Walter said, although I really want to stay with you for a while. I'm also the Platinum Bishop of the Wuhan Hall, and I still have a lot of government affairs to deal with. I know, old man, you've done enough for me, but I won't go back. I want to stay here to practice. Yan Jin looked towards the volcano with a firm look. It's dangerous here, Walter emphasized. It's dangerous, but I can get stronger faster here. I'm not afraid, sister. Yan opened his mouth and wanted to dissuade him, but he couldn't say it. When he got to his lips, Yan Jin looked at Amon, who smiled and said, I respect your decision. He patted Yan Jin's shoulder and kept all the time worms, except this time clone, that replaced the original body, to walk in the outside world. Walter was silent for a long time before he slowly spoke. No strong man can successfully reach the top without some hardships. Since you have this determination, I, as a master, will certainly not stop you. Every once in a while, I will ask Kari to send you some supplies. Don't let me down. Hey. Of course not. Yan Jin grinned. Then, I will stay too. Yan hadn't finished speaking when Amon held his head down. There is no increase in your practice here. Go back to the academy obediently. There is at least a mimicry practice site there, watching Walter and others leave. Yan Jin suddenly spoke. Amon, you are here, right? Yes, I am. Amon's voice sounded in her mind. Even if I'm so far away, can I borrow your power? Amon was silent for a moment and replied, yes. After being together for so long, Yan Jin is the person who is most familiar with and understands him the most. Some secrets that have been guessed do not need to be deliberately concealed. Terrible ability, Yan Jin murmured to himself. Chapter 59. The target of the 4th soul ring. The time for the internal selection competition of the Northern Advanced Soul Master Academy is approaching. Amon's original body walked out of the rented house, with soul power surging around him. Feeling the power filling his body, a smile appeared on his face. He had just broken through to level 40. His normal cultivation speed was actually a bit slow, because when he was meditating, he had to endure the endless harassment of the mumbling from the depths of his soul, and it was difficult for him to really concentrate for a long time. With a thought, he controlled the scattered soul power to shrink into his body. He successfully controlled his own soul power so that it would not show outward. At the same time, all of Amon's clones also felt that an invisible shackle was broken. Regardless of the distance, regardless of whether they could contact the original body, they all had a sense of enlightenment at this moment. The original body has reached level 40. Most of Amon's clones did not practice much, hovering around level 21 or 22, because the cost effectiveness of soul power cultivation was too low, and they would rather spend their time learning knowledge or various skills. The Amons either pinched their eye sockets or adjusted their glasses, and all made a decision at the same time: go hunt soul beasts and use the bug of the time worm clone to absorb soul rings when the main body needs to obtain soul rings, and quickly increase the soul power to level 30. This is the message left by the main body when splitting each time clone. It is agreed that every time the soul power level is about to break through the realm, it will not rush to advance, leaving a month for the clones to have time to level up. One by one, the Amons took action, either alone or in groups of 3 or 5, heading for the forests and mountains where soul beasts appeared. The young guard of the Northern City Guard found Holmes. Captain, I want to take a 2-week leave. Something happened at home, and I have to go to deal with it. Are there any difficulties? Do you need my help? Holmes is optimistic about this young and clever guy. Thank you for your kindness, but I can handle it myself. The young guard scratched his head and smiled innocently. In a tavern in Frostleaf City, a storyteller in a long gown pinched his eye sockets and said to the regular customers of the tavern, I have something to tell you here. I have something to do in the next few weeks, so I will be closed for a while. The storyteller left the tavern and joined various people such as beggars, carpenter apprentices, tailor shop assistants, and coachmen, and rushed to the Zilin Mountains and the Meteor Mountains. Yan Jin sat on the corpse of a huge wild boar. The corpse was charred black and the smell of meat was everywhere. She peeled off the charred shell with a dagger, cut a piece of cooked meat from it, sprinkled salt and cumin on it, and started to eat with the collected fruits. The fallen leaves behind her made a slight sound, and she turned back immediately and crossed her arm wrapped in magma in front of her to block it. This was an instinct formed by living in the forest for a long time. A figure wearing a black pointed soft hat, a classical robe, and a monocle on the right eye appeared in front of her. Yan Jin's face showed joy and surprise. Amon, why are you here? Why are you not welcome? Amon touched the bottom of his glasses, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. I miss you so much. Yan Jin rushed over and gave him a big hug. Yan Jin only knew that the time worm that had been with him was a split of Amon's martial soul, containing part of his will, and he didn't know that the time worm could also transform into a human form. So, when the clone appeared in front of her, she was particularly excited. Hey, I'm already level 39, and I have a hunch that I will be level 40 soon. Have I surpassed you again? Yan Jin showed his soul power fluctuations and boasted proudly. In the past, at the Icewind Junior Soul Master Academy, after she obtained her first soul ring, her soul power level was ahead of Amon for a long time. Later, as Amon's soul was gradually completed and his cultivation talent was restored to the level it should be, his level gradually surpassed her and left her behind, which made Yan Jin feel unwilling. The suitable training environment, the supply of Walter's resources, and the constant fighting with the soul beasts in the mountains and forests made her progress very quickly, and her training speed even surpassed Amon's original body with full soul power talent. Amon smiled and did not answer. He took back the time worm in her body and said softly, I came here for something. You find a safe place to stay. What is it? Do you need my help? Yan Jin asked. Amon shook his head. I can do it myself. Okay, you pay attention to safety. By the way, the in-school selection competition is about to start. You should pay attention to the time and don't miss it. Amon reminded. I can't wait. Yan Jin said with a smile. At level 40, Amon also began to consider the hunting target of the 4th soul ring. The clones had already screened the suitable soul beasts and selected the best choice they thought, waiting for the original body to make a decision. Originally, such a major event about the future should have required a full Mongolia referendum, but many clones were too far away to be contacted, so they could only make expedient decisions. However, the final result was actually the same, because the will of Amon's original body and the will of the full Mongolia referendum were ultimately consistent. Although the personalities of the clones were different, after the opinions and views of all the clones were offset and combined, they would eventually coincide with the original body. So the symbolic significance of the all-Mongolian referendum is greater than its practical significance. It just gives each clone a sense of participation in form point. After browsing the information of dozens of different soul beasts, Amon finally selected the most desired target from them, the soul stealing ghost point. The soul stealing ghost is a soul beast that looks similar to an orangutan, covered with red hair all over its body, and looks quite strange and ominous. They have a very special ability, stealing soul skills. Each soul stealing ghost can only steal one soul skill at the same time, and the duration is short and the randomness is large. Generally, it can only steal skills of the first or second ring. It seems difficult for them to steal those higher level soul skills, but the scary thing is that this is a soul beast that lives in groups. Even if the probability of high level soul skills being stolen is very low, this probability will be continuously magnified under the continuous theft of a large number of soul stealing ghosts. If someone accidentally enters the territory of the soul stealing ghost and is surrounded by them, all soul skills will often be stolen, and they will be slaughtered. The ability of the Dementor is similar to that of the Thief Sequence 6 Fire Thief, which fully meets Amon's requirements. When the main body made the choice, the other Amons also conducted a less complete Amon referendum. They contacted all the Amons they could contact to vote. After excluding some completely chaotic fun Amons, more than 90% of the remaining serious Amons listed it as the best target. The main body of Amon shared the same views as the Amons, and the results were gratifying, which showed that the Amons were in a good mental state and very stable. Of course, it would be better if there were not so many fun Amons clamoring to kill the deep sea demon whale king, Emperor Shan, Snow Emperor, Silver Dragon King, and other unrealistic and inappropriate targets. Chapter 60 Fulfilling the Promise. Amon's true body came to the main hall of Wuhan in North City. Walter sat on a large chair, turned a litter over, and covered it on the table, and then covered it with a pile of documents. After doing this, he looked at Amon and asked pleasantly, "Why did you come to see me?" Both of them have shouldered Yan Jin's teachings to a certain extent, and their relationship is pretty good. Amon stroked his monocle with a bit of a smile. "I wonder if Mr. Walter still remembers his promise to me." "Promise?" Walter was stunned for a moment, then realized. "Are you level 40? "Yes, I need a soul ring." "Okay, what soul beast do you like? I will send people to find it, and then help you hunt it myself." Walter answered readily. He knew Amon's concept of soul rings, and had strict and almost harsh requirements for the selection of soul beast types. This was reflected when he helped Yan Jin choose the third soul ring last time. The advantages that it can greatly increase the possibility of obtaining the desired soul skills, but the disadvantages are also obvious. It consumes manpower and material resources, and requires a long wait. It's okay to say that at a low level. After all, the required age of the soul beast is not too high. There are a lot of them, and someone can always encounter it. However, as the required number of soul rings continues to increase, targets that meet the requirements become increasingly rare. In addition, powerful soul beasts often live in very dangerous places, and hunting in this mode will become increasingly difficult. Suitable. It can't be said that it's not good, but the price/performance ratio is too low, and even big forces cannot afford such consumption. I need a Dementor, preferably between 20,000 and 30,000 years old. Amon said. "What? How many years did you say?" Walter doubted his ears, because the year Amon mentioned was really amazing. 20,000 to 30,000 years. Amon repeated. "Can you absorb such an old soul ring? Do you have any special skills?" Walter knew that Amon would not act without aim, so he immediately thought of this. His gaze towards Amon became intense, with a hint of inquiry. "Indeed, it does, but this is based on the special nature of my martial spirit, and cannot be replicated. My martial soul has the ability to split, which can consume excess energy, so I can absorb soul rings that exceed the limit of my body. However, because the energy is consumed by splitting, the quality of the soul ring will decrease." Amon replied using the same rhetoric as dealing with Vidiel. Walter had a bit of doubt and hesitation on his face. Seeing this, Amon smiled and explained again. "You should know who I am. I have no power. If this technique could be popularized, I wouldn't mind if it spread. I would have used it to exchange benefits with you." Walter nodded. "That's right. According to your pragmatic way of doing things, if it was really valuable to Wuhan Palace, you would have exchanged it for the soul refining grass." "Soul Refining grass is the medicinal material that Walter has always provided to Yan Jin to speed up his cultivation. It is very rare and precious. Amon had also asked Walter before and expressed his willingness to purchase the soul refining grass, but was rejected by the latter. Walter thought for a few seconds and said slowly, "The information from the Wuhan Palace does record the habitat of a group of dementors. It is not difficult for me to kill a 30,000-year-old dementor myself, but you should know that when we made the agreement, we did not consider this extraordinary situation. This has exceeded the value of my promise to you." Amon raised his right hand and touched the bottom edge of the monocle. "Since you didn't refuse directly, Mr. Walter, it means we can still negotiate. I wonder what I need to pay to make up for the difference." Walter smiled and then said in a serious tone, "You don't need to pay anything. I just need you to give me a promise to treat Yan Jin's child well. Don't use her trust in you to do something to hurt her." Based on Walter's life experience, it can certainly be seen that Amon is a refined egoist. Amon has never concealed this, so Walter is a little worried that he will betray Yan Jin for profit in the future. Although he knew that the so-called promise was not that effective, it was still a reminder from his master. Amon chuckled, "Ha, then when we first met in the past, hurting her emotions and making her worship you as a teacher, does it count?" Walter looked embarrassed and said a little unnaturally, "Ahem, this naturally doesn't count. Well, that child is a bit reckless and impulsive. Sometimes she really needs others to dissuade her or make choices for her, even if it is a bit against her wishes." He waved his hand and said, "Okay, when do you think it's appropriate? I'll take you to hunt for soul rings." "How about 1 month later? I need time to settle down and become familiar with the current power." Amon answered, "Okay, then in 1 month." After walking out of Wuhan Hall and walking dozens of steps on the street, Amon suddenly stopped. A woman with a beautiful face and a charming figure, wearing a gorgeous purple dress and a hat with feathers of the same color, came forward. She said in a voice like a silver bell, "Captain Amon, it's really not easy to meet you." In order to make his breakthrough appear more reasonable and natural, Amon pretended to practice hard. In recent times, even his clone rarely went to the college library. "Is something wrong, Aliyah?" Ignoring the pretense of sadness in her words, Amon asked calmly. Aliyah said softly, "Registration for the in-hospital selection competition has begun." Then, "Just report according to the scheduled personnel list." "Did something unexpected happen?" Aliyah shook her head. "No, everything is normal. It's just Yan's sister." Amon smiled and said, "What do you mean by Yan Jin?" "It doesn't matter. She will come back, and even if she is missing, there should be no impact on the results. It's just an internal selection competition. You can just find anyone as a substitute. This is natural. Under your leadership, we will definitely win, but if she does not play, I'm worried that this will become an excuse for others to criticize her." There is a precedent for some teams to replace the civilian students in the team after obtaining the qualification to represent the academy in the Soul Master competition, and replace them with noble children who joined later. Aliyah paused, then continued, "Of course, I will try my best to prevent this from happening." The corner of Amon's mouth was raised slightly, revealing a smile. "They can give it a try. No one can replace Yan Jin." After saying that, he continued to move forward. Looking at Amon's retreating back, Aliyah stood there and savored these words, but in the end she still couldn't understand the meaning. After a long time, she put a smile on her face again and moved forward in the original direction. When passing by the spirit hall, she nodded slightly to Kari, who was looking out from the second floor window. Chapter 61 Team List. Amon's team has already decided on the candidates, and Aliyah submitted the list. Amon, Lian, Vidiel, Romy, Binglan, Aliyah, Yan Jin. The student organized team still has an alternate spot, and there is no candidate for this spot in Amon's team. This list caused an uproar among the students, especially since Aliyah's name was also on it, which was very intriguing. Although Aliyah had already agreed to join Amon's side, she did not disband the team she had formed before, and kept pretending to be actively preparing for the war. This caught the other 3 competitive teams off guard. In addition, some other people on the list are also surprising. Judging from their usual behavior and habits, It is difficult to believe that these people are actually members of the same team. Binglin has always maintained a cold appearance, keeps to herself, and seldom communicates with others. The Rommel people hate dogs, and there is almost no student who doesn't want to beat him up. Yin and Vidiel are normal, but what's interesting is that the two of them once teamed up to beat Rommel. The name Yan Jin is impressive, but the person has not appeared for a long time. As for Amon, his presence is extremely low. When seeing this name in a team with two noble heirs, Alia and Vidiel, the first reaction of most people is, who is this? Is there such a person in the academy? On the training ground, Brady held the list given to him by Roy. There was no emotion or anger on his face. He whispered, I thought Vidiel had given up, but I didn't expect that he would secretly play such a trick and get involved with that woman Arya. Does this mean that Marquis Fekris and Lion Mountain intend to deepen their cooperation? After Brady was slightly surprised, the first thing he thought about was not the outcome of the college game, but political matters. In fact, the student pool of Northland College is very good. If we can really integrate the strength of the whole school and form the strongest team, it may not be unable to compete with the 5 major element colleges. However, due to its special selection mechanism, internal friction is very serious. In addition, these captains who are from great nobles all have politics, interests, connections and other things in their minds. They do not have the determination to move forward, so it is difficult to succeed as a sole master. Achieve good results in competitions. Roy scratched the back of his head, looking a little confused. Are they serious? These people are strong, but they don't look like they can cooperate. I feel that they are not as good as Arya's original team. He looked at the people around him and asked, have any of you seen them training together? I've seen it. The person who spoke was a young man in white. He is the oldest student in the academy and is also very strong. He was invited by Brady to be their sparring partner. Cheng Xiang. Have you seen him? Roy looked suspicious. Cheng Xiang, who was wearing white clothes, had a strange smile on his face. I have seen Vidiel and Lian team up to beat Rommel. Binglin once froze Rommel into a ball and threw it into the river. Leah seemed to have had a conflict with Rommel, but she failed to break his defense. Bateman suddenly whistled. If this can be considered a kind of training, then I have also participated in it. But one thing must be admitted, that guy Rommel's tortoise shell is really hard. Brady clapped his hands and said, although tacit understanding cannot be developed in a short period of time, it is undeniable that their individual strength is strong and should not be underestimated. Alia, that woman, will not do some meaningless things. Since she has chosen this team, if there are no political factors affecting it, it means that in her eyes, the individual combat capabilities of these people are enough to make up for the lack of cooperation among the members. Insufficient. Of course, we don't have to be too nervous, just do our best. In order to perform better in the trials, our training volume will increase by 50% in the future. Bateman lamented. Brady ignored the whines of the players and looked at Cheng Xiang. Senior, do you have any questions? Well, there is no big problem, but since the sparring time has increased, then I'll double the sparring fee. Brady said directly. Master. Cheng Xiang had a sincere smile on his face. The in-house selection competition is a grand event for the entire Northland College. In addition to the few teams that aim to win, there are other teams some want to show themselves in the trials so that they can develop better in the future, while others specifically work as sparring partners for others to earn money. Cheng Xiang belongs to the third type. He gathered several older students like him who were unable to compete because they were overage to form a sparring team. Because they are generally older and stronger, they are the best partners for sparring and are very popular. Brady paid a hefty price to have them serve exclusively for him. At this time, when people's hearts were floating and the atmosphere was noisy, a heroic girl wearing white clothes with red stripes, long fiery red hair, and dark red eyes came to the school gate. Looking at the long lost campus gate, she took a deep breath and shouted, I'm back. Everyone, do you miss me? Some newly admitted students looked at this strange and beautiful face, and their hearts skipped a beat. They felt like they were in love. The old students who had been fortunate enough to communicate with Yan Jin all looked like they had seen a ghost when they saw her, and their hearts skipped a beat. At this moment, they remembered the horror of being dominated by lava and fists. A second year student walked over and asked, "Hello, beautiful lady, are you also a student of the academy?" Yan Jin showed a simple smile. "Hey, you praised me for being beautiful. Not bad, you have good taste." She patted the boy's shoulder, "Looking like you are very smart." Although this reaction was completely different from what the boy expected, he was still happy in his heart, thinking there was a chance. "By the way, do you know which powerful students are there in the school? I want to communicate with them," Yan Jin asked. Before he could respond, "It seems that this is a girl who works hard and likes to practice." With this idea in mind, the boy who approached smiled. "To be honest, my strength is also good. I'm a regular member of a team in the internal selection competition of the academy. If you don't mind, I can also exchange my practice experience with you." He showed pride on his face. Being able to become a regular member of the team means that his strength must be better than that of ordinary students, and he is at the upper level among them. "You?" Yan Jin glanced at him. She wanted to refuse, but then she thought that others had praised her beauty, and it seemed a bit disrespectful to refuse directly, so she nodded. 20 minutes later, on the training ground, rising heat, melting arena, and a boy lying on the ground with lifeless eyes. He was not injured, but was frightened by Yan Jin's terrible attack. At one point, he thought he would be melted like the ground under his feet. Some third year students who were watching shook their heads and sighed, taking the initiative to communicate with Yan Jin. "How can this be so unreasonable? You know, she likes to fight with her classmates the most. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 62. Our front. On the roof of the teaching building, Amon sat on the guardrail without any image, with a faint smile on his face. "Speaking of which, this is our first time together as a whole." In front of him, 6 team members were either standing or sitting on the ground, or looking at him quietly. Amon clapped his hands. "I'm very happy to move forward with you all, but the atmosphere between a group cannot be so tense. How about everyone introduce themselves first?" He continued. "Let me start first. Amon, 19 years old, level 40, auxiliary system war soul master. Vidial, 21 years old, level 38 agility attack system war soul master. Alia, 22 years old, level 38 strong attack system war soul master. Binglan, 16 years old, level 35 control system war soul master. Rommel, 23 years old, level 44 defense system war soul master. Even if it is a very normal self-introduction, when it comes from Rommel's mouth, people have the urge to punch him in the face. Lei Yan, 13 years old, 31st level agility attack war soul master. Lei Yan's age and level caused everyone to marvel. Alia looked at him frequently. For the first time, she felt the gap between her talent and others so intuitively. Yan Jin, 14 years old, 40th level strong attack war soul master. She was promoted to another level. Yan Jin's innate soul power is level 8, and the first 3 soul rings are absorbed by leaps and bounds. Each leap and bound absorption allows her to increase her level a lot, saving a lot of practice time. And high quality soul rings not only bring additional soul power, but also increase qualifications. Her cultivation qualifications are no worse than those with full innate soul power. In addition, the very suitable practice environment and Walter's resource support at all costs are also very important factors. But Walter is not teaching an apprentice. He is raising Yan Jin as a daughter. Amon thought to himself. Everyone was scared by her, and Binglan's expressionless face was also extremely surprised and horrified. Rommel opened his mouth exaggeratedly. "How is this possible? Hehe, you must be shocked." Yan Jin smiled foolishly, with his hands on his waist proudly. Amon raised his right hand, stroked his monocle, jumped off the railing, and said softly, "Maybe you are not familiar with each other. Maybe there is no tacit understanding between us, and it is difficult to have good cooperation on the field. This is also the only thing that Alia and Vidiel are worried about." Hearing this, they frowned and looked a little heavy. Amon paused, ignored the heavy look on their faces, and continued with a smile. "But this is not a problem. You just need to remember, there is no opponent in front of us." He took off his glasses and flicked his hair. The selection competition in the academy started as scheduled. The main purpose of the selection competition is to select the strongest team to represent the academy to participate in the elite competition of advanced soul masters across the continent. Therefore, the competition system does not have so many complicated arrangements. It is the simplest competition, and the winner advances. The competition venue is placed in the Douluo arena of BD City. Not only the teachers and students of the academy, but also other residents in the city could go there to watch. This also made the selection competition no longer just a grand event for the academy, but also a grand event for the entire BD City. In the vast oval building, there were grey-white arenas in the center, and the surrounding audience seats spread outward and upward in a step manner in the center of the back of the audience seats. The best view position was the VIP seat. One was a man with small eyes, a hooked nose, thin eyebrows, thin sides, and bloodless lips. He looked gloomy. He was the master of the BD City Wuhan main hall, Soul Saint Vargas. The other was a middle-aged man with a strong body, a resolute face, and short black hair. He was the principal of the BD Advanced Soul Master Academy, Soul Saint Zhang Yuming. Amon looked at the two in the waiting area for the players. He had met Vargas a few times when he went to the Wuhan Hall to find Walter, and it was the first time he saw Principal Zhang Yuming. Yan Jin crossed her hands and rested them behind her head. She felt a little regretful that she couldn't beat up all the powerful students in the academy before the start of the selection competition to achieve the goal of dominating the academy. After Zhang Yuming and Vargas made standard speeches, they announced the official start of the competition. In the first game, Brad's seeded team, which was quite popular among the students, competed. Their opponents were not bad either. All of them were third-year students when Brad's team showed their martial spirits. Yan Jin was happy. Lion, leopard, wolf, owl, pangolin, octopus, snake, Amon, look. She pointed at Brady and others who looked like orcs after being possessed by martial spirits. "It's really interesting." Amon touched the bottom edge of his monocle. He didn't care about what happened on the field. What made him care was that in such an occasion, Zhang Yuming and Vargas, the two soul saints, were both there, but the mayor of BD City was absent. He discovered a long time ago that BD City seemed calm, but in fact there were undercurrents. Walter, one of the 4 platinum bishops of the Spirit Hall, has been hiding in the dark for more than 2 years as the representative of the royal family's interests. The lord of the Northland city is secretive and rarely shows up. The eldest daughter of the largest noble in the Northland, the daughter of Marquis Fakris, Alia, frequently goes to the Spirit Hall, and Zhu Yaozi, as a middle-level manager of the Northland College, is actually Walter's subordinate. No matter how you look at it, the Spirit Hall is infiltrating the Northland, and is secretly fighting with the royal family. Amon had originally planned to use the vacant spots in the team to win over 1 or 2 northern nobles, but after discovering that old man Walter was making trouble, he gave up the idea. He was still a little afraid of this guy who was strong in Soul Douluo and good at calculating and arranging. By the way, Amon, is there a substitute spot in our team? Yan Jin suddenly asked. Yes. Amon nodded. The old man asked me to tell you that he wants this spot and hopes that you can cooperate with him to a certain extent. The condition is your 5th soul ring. He can help you hunt for up to 50,000 years. Yan Jin didn't know what Walter and Amon were planning, and she didn't want to figure it out. Just simply passed on the message. 50,000 year soul ring, a condition that people can't refuse. Amon said with a smile. This is definitely a generous condition. You know, many titled Douluo's 9th soul ring is only 60,000 or 70,000 years old. Needless to say, it is known that this is a preferential treatment given to him by Walter. For Yan Jin's face. Suddenly, there was a commotion nearby, as if a few people had a little conflict. Vidiel frowned, looked at Yan Jin. and then looked at the empty seat beside him, and had a vague premonition of something. When he looked over, as expected, Rommel was using his barrier martial spirit to form a sphere, wrapping himself up, and madly mocking the students of other teams. He put his hands in his pockets, raised his chin slightly, and his eyes revealed disdain and arrogance, with an extremely arrogant expression, and asking for a beating. Even Vidal, his teammate, who was supposed to be in the same camp with Rommel, had the urge to beat him up. Chapter 63 Eliminate one person. Although he also wanted to beat Rommel, and although the relationship between them was not good, in this situation, Vidal had to stand on the side of one of his own. He walked over and asked, "What happened? This bastard actually dares to call our captain a turtle." The tall and thin man wearing a white on black school uniform had an angry look on his face. But Hassan's martial spirit is indeed a tortoise. Their family's symbol is also a tortoise shell. Rommel spread his hands, looking innocent. Vidal roughly guessed the development of the matter as soon as he heard it. Even if this might be the case, Hassan didn't mind others talking about his turtle spirit, which was the symbol of their family, but Rommel must have used a mocking tone and demeanor, and then a conflict arose. "Listen, don't you care about your team members? Haha, who the hell is he? Can he care about me?" Rommel picked his nose and flicked it at the tall and thin man standing in front of him. Vidal originally wanted to calm down the conflict. If it couldn't be settled, he would stand on Rommel's side and face it together. But when he heard what he said, he immediately wanted to stop caring about it and just fend for himself. Hassan, who was wearing a blue woolen coat and had been silent, quietly watching the development of the situation, said, "Harold, there's no need to talk to him. We'll find out on the field, stupid monkey. Learn from our captain. Oh, monkeys are impatient and turtles are calm. This is in line with your nature." Bang, bang, the sound of broken glass was heard. Cracks appeared on the barrier in front of Rommel, and a dagger was stuck on the barrier. Huh. Rommel raised his eyebrows, repaired the barrier calmly, and flicked the dagger away. "Just wait for me. I will kill you on the field." A girl with a beautiful face in black stared at him coldly. Rommel shook his head and left in a swaggering manner, as if he didn't recognize his relatives. The winner was quickly decided on the field, and Brady's side won with an overwhelming advantage. "Let's go. It's our turn." Amon pinched the upper and lower edges of his monocle and said in a slightly brisk tone. The referee was Zhu Yaozi, the first-year grade director, who was also the commentator. After looking at Amon, he looked away and said loudly, "The next game will be absolutely exciting. I didn't expect that the two seeded teams that were expected to win would meet so soon. One of them is headed by Hassan, but the other's captain is a bit unexpected. It's not the noble Martian Asalia, it's not the elegant nobleman Vidal, but classmate Amon, who has always been unknown in the academy. How this game will unfold, and who will win and lose in the end, let us wait and see." When the game started, Rommel put a thick barrier on himself, walked slowly to the front of the team, and gave his opponent the middle finger. Outstanding effect. Even a calm man like Hassan could not accept his repeated provocations, and stared at him coldly. Amon used his soul bone skills to materialize his soul power, condensed it into a large chair, and sat on it, crossing his legs, as if watching a show. Not only the spectators outside the field were shocked, but the opponent's teammates were also shocked. Amon's leisurely look showed that he did not take Hassan's 7 people seriously at all. Hassan could no longer hold back the anger in his heart, stared at Amon, and gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, you're fine." Rommel was stunned. He had rich provocation experience and was keenly aware that the other party's anger towards him had been greatly weakened, and more of it was transferred to Amon. His taunting of Hassan outside the ring was also a tactic of his own. Because he considers himself to be the one with the strongest defense in the team, he should bear the most attacks, but there is no way to force the opponent to attack him, so he deliberately provokes before and during the game to let the opponent focus more on himself, thereby reducing the pressure on his teammates. What he didn't expect was that his captain suddenly made such a move and directly took away the hatred. To express it in game terms, once again he felt that he was lacking in provocation. "Amon, how to fight?" Yan Jin turned his head and asked. Amon stroked his glasses, smiled and said, "As you wish. I know Yan Jin walked to Rommel, knocked on his barrier with his hand, and said with interest, "This seems pretty good. Give me one too." Rommel replied unceremoniously, "Go away, who cares whether you live or die." Magma oozed from Yan Jin's hands and continued to spread, covering Rommel's entire spherical barrier. HMPH, do you think this can break my defense? I still remember the ridiculous way you jumped up and punched Miney 2 years ago. Rommel's mouth felt as if it had been covered with honey, which was extra sweet. Yan Jin's third soul ring lit up, the flow of magma slowed down, the original red light gradually extinguished, and finally solidified into black rock. Her third soul skill can adjust the temperature of the martial soul. It can increase the temperature of the magma to a certain extent by consuming soul power, or it can also lower its temperature. Of course, the latter consumes much less rock. Ember can't break Rommel's defense, but it doesn't mean it can't be trapped. She grabbed the stone ball and tossed it toward Hussein like a bowling ball. Hussein avoided the stone ball with alert eyes and watched it pass through the 7 people on his side and roll all the way to the bottom of the ring. He looked at the stone ball that had come off the stage in astonishment. Somewhat confused. Originally, he thought it was some kind of tactic, but now that it has come off the stage, it should be considered out, right? The audience outside the venue also stared at this scene in a daze, with a puzzled look on their faces. Zhu Yaozi hesitated for a moment and used his soul power to spread his voice and did his job as a referee and commentator, as expected of the star player Yan Jin, who has been the focus of everyone's attention. He eliminated a contestant at the beginning of the game. She has cleared the obstacles on her offensive path. Next, how should the Hussein team deal with her offensive? Zhu Yao's commentary made the audience outside the venue laugh. Vargas smiled, knowing that this was Walter's apprentice, and said to the dean of the Northland College beside him with a smile, "The students of your college are really unique, Principal." Zhang Yuming snorted coldly, a farce. Vidal, Alia, and Binglan on the field didn't know what to say for a moment. Although Rommel was indeed hated, he was still a teammate after all. What kind of operation was it to send him off the stage? They couldn't help but look at the captain, only to see that Amon was still smiling and seemed to not care about Yan Jin's behavior at all. Li Ying covered her face and said helplessly, "Sister, you, Amon," said casually, "Then I will do it casually." Yan Jin replied with a smile. Hussein took a deep breath, puzzled by the mysterious behavior of his opponent, and didn't even know whether he should be angry. He stepped forward and said with some dissatisfaction, "Are you really playing seriously? Or do you look down on me?" "Look down on you?" Yan Jin tilted his head and grinned. "Who do you think you are?" Chapter 64. Another bug. Although he could not understand Yan Jin's words, he could sense her arrogance and conceit from her attitude. Hussein was almost furious, and his face was completely gloomy. However, the gloom on his face did not last long, and was replaced by horror and shock. The rolling lava continued to surge, spread, and finally climbed upward, condensing limbs and facial features to form a 7-meter tall giant, lava giant soldier, although there was still a big gap from the 50 meters presented when killing the eyeless snake. This was performed by Yan Jin with her own strength. The lava giant looked at Hussein with his empty, dead, and soulless eyes, and a heavy sense of oppression suddenly came over him. For a moment, Hussein even felt that his heart skipped a beat. Yan Jin, who turned into a lava giant, began to run, speed up, and rush forward. Relying only on her own soul power. She could not maintain this form for long. "Get out of the way," Hussein shouted, and at the same time, activated his martial soul. After the possession, a tortoise shell grew on his body, his head became shiny, and his skin was tinged with a hint of green. The second and third soul rings lit up at the same time, and a huge tortoise shell shadow enveloped Hussein. The lava giant's fist fell with a bang, smashing cracks on the tortoise shell. The girl in black went around from the side, scanning the giant's body, looking for a suitable place to cut. Her hold held the long sword martial spirit. The second soul ring lit up, the sword body glowed with silver, and slashed at the calf fiercely. The sword blade cut through the giant's calf, but it was like drawing a knife to cut water, and the cut wound healed immediately after the sword body passed. The giant turned his empty eyes to Herald, kicked him away like a ball, and at the same time, The scattered magma left a large area of burns on his body at an extremely high temperature point. There was no time to think about it. The black-clothed girl's dagger suddenly stretched out, like a poisonous snake, that launched an attack and ejected, and stabbed the lava giant's chest fiercely. But there was a collision sound. Yan Jin changed the temperature of the magma, causing the magma in the lava giant's chest to solidify and turn into black rock to protect itself. Although there was no burning caused by the high temperature, it was harder. Attack his chest. The little devil is hiding in his chest. Hassan shouted. Although the lava giant is huge, the only place that can accommodate a person is the torso. Yan Jin controlled the giant and slammed the tortoise shell with her elbow. She used her second soul skill, giving this impact a very high speed. The giant's arm was shaken by the recoil and turned into a ball of magma and scattered, and Hassan's tortoise shell was also shattered and turned into a halo of light and dissipated. Rommel, who turned the barrier into a long sword and broke the stone ball, walked out of the rock fragments cursing. Just seeing this scene, his original loud curse turned into a whisper. Yan Jin's shocking performance amazed everyone inside and outside the field, and then burst into thunderous shouts. Yan Jin, Yan Jin, Yan Jin. The shouts came one after another, echoing in the fighting arena like a tide, and Zhu Yaozi was even more flattering. Oh my god. Yan Jin showed her oppressive power, breaking up the opponent's formation with her own strength. She also knocked down one of the opponent's players, making him lose the strength to fight again. On the field, after Hassan's shout, the other four also used their soul skills to attack Yan Jin. Feeling that her soul power was rapidly decreasing and had reached the bottom, Yan Jin in the giant's body did not change her expression. She shouted in her heart, Amon, help me. Sitting on the grey chair, made of soul power, Amon smiled and snapped his fingers at different time worms in his body, launched deception on different targets. Hassan's actions slowed down significantly. At the same time, he whispered, Lei Yin, Lei Yin understood and turned into a lightning and appeared in the battle circle. His third martial soul skill is assimilation with martial soul, which is elementalization when applied to elemental martial souls. In the plan made by Amon for them, this should be an ability that can only be obtained after breaking through to the 7th soul ring of Soul Saint. Under the rules of the world of Douluo, the higher the level of the soul ring, the more powerful the soul skills it can provide. And powerful abilities, if they appear on low-level soul rings, will also be weakened accordingly. Either the conditions for use are harsh and the restrictions are huge, or the effect is greatly reduced and becomes a useless existence. Elementalization is very suitable for martial soul true body in terms of strength and characteristics. Such an ability will naturally be greatly weakened when it appears on the 3rd soul ring. Lei Yin's elementalization is neither immune to soul power attacks nor to physical attacks. In addition to turning him into thunder, it has no other additional effects. If such elementalization appears on the owners of other elemental martial souls, it will not be of much use at all. What kind of elementalization is it that cannot allow oneself to avoid damage? But Lei Yin's martial soul is thunder. After becoming an element, he can move in the form of thunder. It is a powerful skill comparable to Xiao Wu's teleport. And without teleport, it cannot be activated continuously, and the moving distance is limited to 5 meters, because his restrictions have been paid elsewhere. This is also considered a bug, but Amon is not very sure that this bug will be successfully blocked, and the decision is left to Lei Yin himself. In the end, Lei Yin won the bet. Because of Amon's deception, their thinking was slow, and Lian's appearance was so unexpected that Hassan's 2 team members were easily knocked to the ground by him. When Lian took action, Vidiel and Alia also reacted. 1 Used the 2nd soul skill to speed up, rushed to an opponent, and knocked him out with a palm. The other summoned a heavy book, and the 1st soul skill lit up, and a bright light ball emitting green light appeared above her. Starlight, turn into my arrow. The light ball smashed forward like a falling meteor, knocking down an opponent. Feeling hopeless of victory, the black-clothed girl quietly touched Amon's side, ready to make him pay for his arrogance. A wall of ice suddenly appeared, like a natural moat between her and Amon, and Binglan walked to her expressionlessly. The black-clothed girl wanted to attack, but found that her body began to stiffen, and gradually lost consciousness. layer of frost climbed up from the ground along his legs without him noticing. Binglan put her hand on the black clothed girl and turned her into an ice sculpture. Yan Jin's body emerged and separated from the lava giant's chest. Her right arm stretched back, and all the magma continued to shrink and gather. Finally, the original lava giant turned into a huge lava fist. Big fire. The lava fist smashed down with an extremely terrifying force. Hussein's eyes were filled with fear, and he could only use all his strength to display his defensive skills. The turtle shell only lasted for a while before it was shattered, and the huge fist made of lava stopped at the moment it was about to hit him. Looking at the fiery red magma that was less than half a meter away from him and exuded a burning breath, Hussein swallowed his saliva and said in a hoarse voice, "I surrender." Chapter 65 WALTER and -039 S request. The battle ended quickly. Yan Jin's attack was more ferocious than everyone expected. Even Amon was a little surprised. Although he has interacted with the worm of time in Yan Jin's body and is aware of her progress in the past 2 years, she has never used the lava giant soldier method independently in the past. The audience was greatly surprised that the battle ended so neatly, especially the other students at Northland College, who all couldn't believe it. After all, Amon's opponents were not some miscellaneous team, but a team carefully formed by Hussein, a noble boy, with the goal of winning the championship. What's even more shocking is that they didn't try their best. It's hard to say even how much effort was used. He knocked one of his teammates off the ring from the very beginning. As the captain, Amon seemed to be watching the whole process. Lian, Vidiel, Aliyah, and Binglan hardly fought, and they just solved their opponents in an instant. The only one who showed full power was Yan Jin, but what she showed was too powerful. It was hard to believe that this was the strength possessed by a soul master. Zhang Yuming showed a satisfied smile on his face. Not bad, but the cooperation is terrible. I can't say that the cooperation on Amon's side is very bad. I can only say that it's not at all. It seems that everyone has solved the opponent independently and the division of labor is clear, but in fact, the battlefield is divided and everyone fights his own way. They were able to win so easily because, firstly, Rock Ember broke up the opponent's formation, and secondly, because of Amon's deception, their thinking was unable to react and they were unable to support each other. Zhu Yaozi announced the result of the game, and the audience was still immersed in the shock of Rock Ember turning into a giant and dominating the entire battle. After a brief silence, more enthusiastic applause and cheers broke out in the spirit fighting arena. Looking at Hussein, who was a little lost after the defeat, Brady laughed at himself. No wonder they have never been seen training together. With such strength, they can win easily without any cooperation. Boss. Roy was dumbfounded. That red-haired brat is too outrageous, right? She seems to be much stronger than 2 years ago. Yes, she is much stronger than 2 years ago. That annoying guy Rommel is no longer the same as in the past, who can only be beaten and cannot fight back. Cheng Xiang sighed. Although saying this may be a bit of a shock to you, the fact is that you have no chance of winning. Forget about you. Even our group of overage seniors will be beaten up. Brady nodded and agreed with this point of view. The brilliance of Yan Jin is indeed dazzling, but Amon, who is hidden under the brilliance and always watching everything calmly, may be even more terrifying. Even if there is no chance of winning, I still want to see what kind of strength he has to be qualified to be the captain of such a team. You guys will support me, right? He asked, looking at his teammates. Of course, you are our boss, Roy replied without thinking. Bateman shrugged. You paid me when you recruited me. You are the boss. I do what you want. Brady had a smile on his face. Each team had only one game today. After the game, Amon left the soul fighting arena and left the remaining matters to Vidiel. He came to Wuhan Hall and found Walter. Mr. Walter, do you want an alternate spot in my team? Amon went straight to the topic without any greetings. Yes, you shouldn't refuse the conditions I gave, right? Although he was asking, there was a hint of undoubt in Walter's tone. Amon chuckled lightly, raised his right hand, and adjusted his monocle. Of course, haven't we always gotten along very happily? Other than that, is there anything else that needs to be cooperated? Such conditions alone are not worth a 50,000-year-old soul ring. It is something that even Soul Saints and even Contras are excited about. Walter was very satisfied with Amon's attitude and said with a smile, in the following games, let Yan Jin stand out as much as possible and let her show off her talent and talents. In addition, let Arya also perform appropriately, but not too much. Amon showed an interesting expression and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. I understand. The purpose of letting Yan Jin show off her talent is easy to guess. It is most likely to let others see her talent, recognize her talent, and prepare for joining Wuhan Hall in the future, so as to plan for a better initial position point. As far as getting Aliyah to behave appropriately is worth exploring. Walter's request is confusing. Appropriate performance, not too much. Are you worried that she will steal Yan Jin's limelight? Or are you worried that she is too pushy? Amon chewed the meaning of this sentence in his heart, guessing Walter's purpose point. He currently knew so little information that it was difficult to piece together the truth point. Although the clones have spread to every corner of the North City, their status is generally low, and it is difficult to access the real secrets without showing their strength point. They all show the power of the Soul Master and are easy to attract attention. At this stage, Amon mainly seeks stability and is unwilling to take risks. In addition, Marquis Chris is hundreds of miles away, and his attitude, stance, and tendencies can only be inferred to a limited extent through Arya's behavior. Walter tapped the table with his index finger and suddenly said, the specific location of the Dementor you want has been determined. The year is not clear. I just know that it is more than 10,000 years old. Go hunt for spirit rings after the selection is over, lest they move. If you delay for too long, and it will be troublesome to find them later. There are still a few days left before the agreed month, but Amon estimated that his clones should have almost completed the level upgrade. Even if there are a few left who are procrastinating, it will not affect the overall situation, so he nodded in agreement. What do you think of Yan Jin's fourth spirit ring? Amon asked. Walter shook his head. He was really not good at this aspect of theory. It's better for you to choose. Facts have proved that the development direction of the spirit ring you planned for her is very suitable for her. In this aspect, you are professional. Then, let's go for the Flame King Dragon. Yan Jin has laid a good foundation. Next, it's time to strengthen her attack power. As for the age, about 10,000 years. Amon did not hesitate and directly gave the plan he had thought of long ago. 10,000 years. Walter was not embarrassed at all, but very happy. The higher the age of the spirit ring that Yan Jin needs, the greater her potential and the higher her future achievements. How was her performance today? Walter asked. Very good. I think Vargas should bring you a detailed account of the battle later. Amon smiled. He did not ask why Walter did not go to watch the battle in person. Some things can be tacitly understood. Walter had long guessed what Amon had guessed and knew that he knew some secrets, but there was no reason for the two to conflict at present. Yan Jin was the bond that maintained the harmony between the two of them. If it were not for Yan Jin, Amon's unexpected unstable factor, Walter would have taken action to control him long ago. A long time ago. He felt that this was not a simple character. Amon's calmness did not seem to be pretended, and he did not even have much awe for himself. A Soul Douluo. Chapter 66. The Trial's End. Amon and his team played their second match against a second-year team. This time, he did not attack. Yan Jin and Lian were the main attackers, and Alia cooperated with them. The battle ended in 2 or 3 moves except for a small mistake on the field. Binglan accidentally froze Rommel into an ice sculpture. There were no other twists and turns. The third match happened to be a bye, and in the fourth match, which was the final, they met acquaintances. Brady and others from the same class. Amon had planned to condense a seat as usual, but he didn't expect Rommel to be one step ahead of him and use the barrier to create a wide seat. Captain Amon, please sit down. Seeing his action, Amon was slightly stunned, and Vidiel and Alia looked incredible. No way. The bad Rommel actually knows how to please people. Vidiel said in surprise. Surprising. Alia said softly. What do you think I should do? Rommel picked his nose and squinted at them with a disdainful look. I've decided to follow the captain in the future. Amon smiled and sat naturally on the dark purple white chair, leaning back against the backrest. Brady was not surprised or angry when he saw his posture, but just watched calmly. Zhu as he stood in the referee's seat and said a lot of warm-up words before announcing the official start of the game. To everyone's surprise, Brady's teammates left the ring at the first time. What do you mean? Vidiel's eyes sank slightly. Brady smiled. I know we have lost this game and there is no need to fight at all, but I want to know the gap between you and me. He stared at Amon with fighting spirit in his eyes. Although most of the time, Brady is a rational person who prioritizes the pros and cons and weighs the gains and losses, but he is also a young man, and he has hardly ever failed. He is arrogant and proud. He will naturally feel unwilling to be left behind by his peers in terms of overall team strength. Even if he loses, he wants to lose clearly. Give me a chance to fight you alone. His eyes are like a young lion about to challenge the Lion King. Hey, who do you think you are? Even I haven't dared to challenge Amon for a long time. Yan Jin stepped forward and blocked Brady. Amon raised his right hand, touching the upper and lower edges of his monocle with his index finger and thumb, and chuckled. Since you insist on asking, I will give you this opportunity. Yan Jin, step down. Oh, okay. Yan Jin nodded, then jumped off the ring from the side. The rest of the people looked at each other and left. Zhu Yao's commentary also sounded. It seems that something unexpected happened on the ring. The players of the two teams left the stage one after another, leaving the stage to their respective captains. Is this going to decide the champion by a duel between the captains? Although it is a little inconsistent with the concept of team battle, the academy has no rules that prohibit this. If both sides agree on this method, it seems feasible. Most of the audience were looking forward to Yan Jin's battle. Seeing this, they were slightly disappointed, but some people were more looking forward to it. After all, Amon has always been very mysterious. No one has seen him take action or show his martial spirit since the game started. After Vidiel left, the barrier chair naturally dissipated. Amon stood up and looked at Brady's martial spirit possessed, turning into a half-beast image with a lion face and a human body. Brady, 38 level strong attack system war soul master. Amon, 40 level auxiliary system war soul master. Although Amon was standing there leisurely, without any sign of fighting, Brady did not dare to be careless. As soon as he came up, he used his strongest means, and the third soul skill was lit up. Amon's eyes were slightly condensed. In fact, he had already used the third soul skill, but the first soul skill had stolen all the expressiveness of the soul power, so it was completely invisible from the outside. Amon's third soul skill is a continuous skill. During the skill maintenance period, he can predict the opponent's upcoming skill 1 second in advance. And according to the level comparison between the two sides, he can see through the effects and loopholes of the opponent's skill under the effect of insight. Brady's upcoming soul skill was analyzed by him 1 second in advance. Amon calmly materialized his soul power, forming a grey translucent shield covering his whole body. Is that Rommel's barrier? Bateman and the audience was surprised. No, it shouldn't be. It's just a similar skill. No wonder Rommel joined their team. He should have learned the method of transforming and reshaping the barrier into a weapon from Amon. Cheng Xiang analyzed with his chin in his hand. Brady opened his mouth, and invisible sound waves spewed out from his mouth. The ring was broken, and dust flew wherever he passed. Lions roar. The sound waves hit Amon's shield, causing layers of ripples. Amon just kept inputting soul power to make the shield thicker and stronger. His materialized soul power defense was naturally inferior to Rommel's barrier martial spirit. When facing the same attack, Rommel might only need to consume 1 unit of soul power to resist, while Amon might have to consume 5 or even 10 units of soul power to achieve the same effect. But it didn't matter. What Amon lacked the most was soul power. The more than 100 level 30 time bugs he carried on his body could continuously replenish him. Brady's Lion's Roar is also a continuous attack skill. As long as you keep inputting soul power, the sound waves will not stop. But until his soul power was exhausted, he could not make the shield in front of Amon have the slightest crack. Looking at Amon, who was still calm and smiling after blocking his strongest attack head on, Brady's eyes flashed with a trace of confusion. This gap is so big that it makes people feel unreal. If Yan Chang is a raging volcano, People can see its violent power at a glance. Then Amon is an endless sea, although calm, but there is no edge point. Amon raised his right hand, snapped his fingers, and threw a fraud at the other party. Brady had already begun to doubt himself and his talent. His thinking was affected again, his expression began to dull, and his eyes lost focus. Amon raised his arm, stretched out his thumb and index finger, and gathered a small amount of soul power. Bang! A weak air bomb exploded in Brady's chest. He was hit by the air wave, stumbled backwards, and sat on the ground. The pain brought Brady back to his senses. He realized his current embarrassment, sighed, raised his right hand and shouted, "I give up." The audience applauded sparsely, but not enthusiastically. From the performance point of view, Amon's fight was not exciting and there was no passion at all. There was no sense of impact and shock when Yan Jin fought, nor the artistic sense of Lei Yin's showmanship. He just used the defense of soul power, materialization, and a huge total amount of soul power to crush the past. And his opponent will feel the powerlessness of not having the slightest chance of winning, no matter how hard he struggles. Zhu Yaozi announced the result of the game loudly. It seems that the winner has been decided. The team competition of the intra-school selection has ended here. Amon's team won. They will take this honor and represent our college to participate in the elite competition of advanced soul master colleges across the continent 1 year later. Now, let us give warm applause to the winner. Chapter 67 Soul Dangling Mountains. The Soul Dangling Mountains are located at the junction of the Northland Province and the Fasno Province, and are the continuation of the Ironheart Mountains to the south. This mountain area is not large, but it is surrounded by thick fog all year round, and is home to a series of soul beasts with strange shapes and characteristics, hence the name, Do. The soul-catching ghosts live in the Soul Dangling Mountains. Amon followed Walter slowly, walking on a stone-paved path. Yes, Monoz is following them from a distance to ensure that they will not suddenly move and lose their tracks. Walter nodded in response. Monoz is another soul emperor under Walter. He often acts with Kari, and is deeply trusted by Walter. Why didn't you let Yan Jin come with you this time? She also needs a soul ring. Maybe she can meet it on the way, if she is lucky. Amon asked as he walked. Walter shook his head slightly. I believe in your vision. Since you said that the Flame King Dragon is the most suitable for her 4th soul ring, then choose the Flame King Dragon. And this kind of soul beast, or soul beasts with similar characteristics, will never appear in the Dangheng Mountains. As for the reason, you will know when you get there. Not long after, they came to a village with few people, only dozens of households. The villagers looked at Amon with a bit of scrutiny and vigilance. Amon raised his right hand, adjusted his monocle, and whispered to himself, interesting. He found that there were no old people in the village, and most of them were young men and teenagers. The most important thing was that all the people here were soul masters. Although they hid well, they could not hide from the keen insight brought by Amon's 3rd soul skill, decryption scholar. In addition, the breath of these villagers made Amon feel faintly familiar, just like the 3 triplets soul master robbers who attacked him and Yan Jin on the way to Beatty City. A young man wearing a black suit with the word soul written on his clothes stepped forward and saluted Walter. Lord Walter, Lord Monroz told me before he left to lead the way for you. When do you plan to enter the forest? Walter nodded. Now, those soul-grabbing ghosts are quite troublesome. If it takes too long, Monroz might be in danger. Led by the young man in black, Walter and Amon walked towards the forest not far from the village. As the distance got closer, Amon felt something unusual. The water element around him suddenly became dense, and there was a force similar to spiritual power mixed in it. The originally clear and normal mountains in front suddenly became blurred. Hazy fog rose, and visibility dropped sharply. Amon took off his glasses, wiped them gently with silk, wiped off the water stains on the lenses, and put them on again. He said, indeed, the Flame King Dragon will not appear in such a place. The water element here are too dense, which is the environment they hate the most. Walter smiled and said gently, it's incredible, right? Obviously, the mountains are very clear from a distance, but once you get close, you will see a large area of fog, and all the scenery will become blurred. Amon nodded slightly. It's a bit like some kind of natural formation. Of course, it may also be man-made. Walter showed surprise on his face, and he asked with some curiosity, you actually know about formations? Even if it is based on people, the formation that gathers the power of everyone is not ordinary knowledge, and even fewer people know that the terrain can also be used to set up formations. If you have time, you can take time to go to the library of Northland College. As long as you are patient enough, you will always gain something. Amon replied with a smile. Study. You should learn more while you are young. At my age, I don't have such a strong desire for knowledge. Walter sighed. The young man in black carefully took out a bamboo tube from his arms and opened the sealed lid. A black beetle flew out of it, making a slight buzzing sound. Although it was very weak, the beetle did emit a faint soul power fluctuation. The young man fed the beetle a black pill-shaped object. After the beetle was full, it stayed on his palm for a while and then flew into the air after circling for a few times. It flew slowly in one direction, this way. The young man followed. Although the beetle did not fly fast, it also needed to run to keep up. With the use of soul power, the soul power fluctuations on the young man could no longer be hidden so perfectly, and the aura of the Soul King was revealed. Walter looked at Amon. Do you need me to take you away? Amon smiled with some ease. I can still keep up with this level. As he spoke, he gathered his soul power to his feet, and through continuous short and powerful bursts, he increased his speed to a level slightly faster than the black-clothed youth, and caught up. Walter floated in the air, leaning forward slightly, and came to Amon's side silently. He glanced at Amon's way of rushing, and with his eyesight, he could naturally see some clues. Very good soul power application skills. Your soul power control level is probably higher than the Soul Saint, and is not inferior to the average Soul Douluo. The three people moved forward very quickly, and Walter seemed to want to test Amon's level. Along the way, he not only did not take into account the person with the lowest soul power level in the team, but even secretly signaled the black-clothed youth to speed up. Amon followed the young man calmly. For him, the speed increase was nothing more than a slight increase in the output of soul power under his feet. As for the consumption, if it was a pure soul power competition, he could consume Walter to death. Walter didn't find it strange that Amon could keep up. This was within his expectations. However, the black-clothed young man showed some surprise in his eyes. For a normal soul master, his speed of rushing almost required full strength to keep up, and running at full strength was obviously impossible to last, and his demeanor would not be so relaxed. He is worthy of being the one who can make Lord Walter personally help hunt soul rings. He thought to himself. Not long after, the beetle's flying speed slowed down. After circling in the air for a while, it turned around and flew back, and then turned again. After several times in a row, it seemed to be a little confused, and flew back to the young man's hand, with its wings drooping. Motionless, the young man pointed the opening of the bamboo tube at the beetle, and the beetle crawled in obediently. He closed the lid, and said to Walter, something is interfering with the judgment of the smell-seeking insect. Walter did not blame him, and said calmly, then look around. It may be that Monroz covered his tracks himself. It seems that it is not necessary. Amon pointed to the dense forest on the left, and said. A middle-aged man in a black robe walked out of the dense forest. There were some blood stains on his clothes, but there was no smell of blood. It should be covered up by him in some way. This is the person they are looking for. Monroz, Lord Walter. Monroz's voice was a little weak. Sorry, the mission failed. Those ghosts are very cunning. Chapter 68 Dementors. What's the matter with your injury? Is it serious? Walter did not worry about why his mission failed, but first cared about Monroz's injury. It doesn't matter. I was following them well, but suddenly a group of black baboons came out of nowhere and started fighting with the Dementors. I was discovered in the chaos, so I temporarily evacuated. Later, when I went to look for traces of the Dementors again, I found that they had already been prepared to deal with me. Let the ordinary Dementors be revealed first. When I was following me, the Dementor leader sneaked up with a few elite Dementors and attacked me. Fortunately, my 6th soul skill can still be used normally and has not been affected by them. Otherwise I might not be able to come back. Although Monoz's tone was very calm, anyone could hear the danger in it. Dementors are not good at encounters, but if they target a prey with premeditation, they will be the most terrifying hunters. It's indeed cunning. Walter's face suddenly became serious. his eyes as sharp as a falcon about to fly down. Amon felt a sense of emptiness, as if he had lost something important, and then the world in his eyes suddenly stopped. It's like a sleeping person opening his eyes, feeling a little dazed for a moment. He can see, hear, and smell, but he just doesn't know how to react to what he perceives. He felt like his brain was rusty, and it was difficult to think. A clear consciousness instantly took over his body. A time insect with a personality similar to its own body processed the received information and continuously transmitted the results to the brain through conscious interaction. Amon resumed his thinking. He raised his right hand, stroked his monocle, and said with great interest, "Is this the effect of fraud? Interesting. What just caused Amon to think sluggishly was the active part of his soul skill scammer, deception. The Dementors had no intention of letting Monos go. They chased him and launched a secret attack. Amon beside him also became a target. They stole Amon's soul skill and applied it to Amon. Since he decided to take the soul destroying ghost as a target of obtaining the soul ring this time, Amon certainly had a relatively deep understanding of this kind of soul beast, and he had also made plans for various situations that he might encounter during this trip. Among them, it was naturally expected by Amon that his soul skills were stolen and turned against him. His first and third soul skills both affect himself, and only his second soul skill directly affects his opponent. If the soul dementors stole his soul skill, the only one that could be used directly against him would be the second soul skill. Amon's countermeasure is to prepare in advance a time insect whose behavior and thinking methods are similar to his own body. After the body's thinking is affected, it takes over the body through spiritual connection. His eyes regained clarity and he shouted, "Be careful, the Dementors are coming." The expressions of the young man in black and Monos changed, and their original movements suddenly stagnated. They felt that their soul skills were being silenced one by one. A ball of flame flew from the dense forest, and the young man in black looked ugly because this ball of flame was the most convenient soul skill he usually used. Amon stretched out his palm and materialized his soul power, and a light gray halo enveloped all four of his party. The flames flew to the gray barrier, causing ripples. The smile on Amon's face suddenly froze for a moment, and the barrier covering the four people only lasted for a while and then disappeared. Subconsciously, he reached out to his right eye, but in the middle of the action, he paused for a moment and then pinched the orbit of his right eye. The monocle he had been wearing on his right eye also followed the barrier, disappeared. Amon shrugged and said with a hint of helplessness, "Well, I have no choice. Even the soul bone skills have been stolen. It's up to you, Mr. Walter." When Amon encounters them now, it's like a low sequence person on the thief path encounters a higher sequence being, or he encounters a group of people who are severely suppressed. Walter's expression was indifferent. The palm of his right hand was upward, the 5 fingers were naturally bent, and then his 5 fingers suddenly closed in the middle. The surrounding trees seemed to have been cut by invisible blades, neatly broken into several sections, and the fractures were smooth and flat. Also cut apart were several soul dementors that were the size of adults. Their bodies were dismembered without any resistance, and their fallen heads were still somewhat confused. Although all 3 soul skills were stolen, the passive improvement brought by the soul skills still existed. Amon was keenly aware that there were a large number of extremely thin threads that were difficult to see with the naked eye distributed around them. It was these threads that caused the scene just now. The death of their companions caused panic among the Dementors. They screamed one after another, and humanoid figures with long red hair ran among the trees further away. Monos's face was gloomy, and at the same time he felt a sense of fear in his heart. If Walter hadn't arrived in time, he would have died in the hands of the Dementors in a short time. Unexpectedly, they completed the siege of themselves quietly. A low and penetrating roar sounded. The Dementors calmed down and looked at the owner of the roar with some fear. A Dementor who was half taller than a normal person, with a thin build, a scar on his face, and a bone whip wrapped around his body, looked a bit old. Its eyes glowed with a blue light, looking at the 4 humans in front of it, eyes full of ferocity and brutality. Monos saw the leader of the soul drawing ghosts, and the wound on his body was aching slightly. It was this 10,000-year soul beast that almost killed him. Beside the scar soul drawing ghost, there were 2 soul drawing ghosts of the same height, but stronger and larger. They roared intimidatingly at the 4 people. The scar soul drawing ghost waved his hand, and the 2 followers stopped roaring. and took a step back. The young man in black looked at this scene and was amazed. Their intelligence seems to be not low. Monos whispered, old soul beasts can give birth to spiritual intelligence, not to mention soul drawing ghosts, which are very close to humans. Walter gestured to Amon. This is the goal of our trip. This guy is about 30,000 years old, maybe even more. What do you think? It looks pretty good. I'm very satisfied. Amon replied with a smile. The Scar leader pointed at Amon and made a strange sound of hoo-hoo. His two followers nodded repeatedly, then stared at Amon, not daring to blink. Are they discussing tactics? Amon asked. Who knows? Maybe after you absorb the spirit ring, you can try to communicate with them. Walter replied. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Silk Puppet. Monos knew that he couldn't give a soul-stealing ghosts enough time. Otherwise the probability of his high-level soul skills being stolen would continue to increase. As long as he tried enough, even the smallest probability would happen. He looked at Scarface, and a longbow appeared in his hand, accompanied by a yellowish halo, and the sixth soul ring lit up. After seeing his action, Scarface's head slightly back, his face slightly tilted, squinting at him, revealing a disdainful smile. It stretched out its hand and grabbed forward, 5 fingers clenched, and the dark red light on its hand flowed. Monos' soul ringed and turned grey, and without light, he was horrified to find that his sixth soul skill had disappeared. Be careful, this guy took my sixth soul skill, he reminded loudly. Ha hoo. The surrounding soul-stealing ghosts howled excitedly and beat the ground with their hands, as if to cheer for the leader of their tribe. Scarface did not attack immediately, but spread his palm forward and made an inviting gesture to Amon. This made Walter, who wanted to take action, look interested and quietly watch the show. Seeing that Amon was unmoved, Scarface pointed at him, patted his left arm first, and then patted his right arm. Then he pointed at a female Dementor in the tribe and waved his hand proudly. Walter smiled strangely and said to Amon, left and right arms, beauty, is it trying to recruit you? I think so. Amon raised his right hand, paused slightly, and then pinched his eye sockets before putting it down. He probably guessed what was going on. Monos said that he was able to escape from the encirclement of Dementors because his sixth soul skill was still usable, which means that the previous Dementors could not easily steal his sixth soul skill. But Scarface's performance just now showed that he could do this easily. If Scarface had not deliberately let Monos escape before, then something had strengthened Scarface's stealing ability. Amon knew that there were two main factors for the soul hunter to steal soul skills. One was the age of the soul hunter itself, and the other was the level and strength of the target soul skills. He speculated that there was another hidden factor, which was the soul hunter's understanding of the target soul skills. Amon guessed in his heart, the reason why Scarface was able to easily steal Monos' sixth soul skill was probably because it stole my third soul skill, Decryption Scholar. This allowed it to predict Monos' soul skills in advance and understand some of its effects and loopholes, so the possibility of successful theft was greatly increased. It realized the importance of my soul skill to it and was unwilling to let it go, but because the stolen skills were time limited, it couldn't kill me, so it wanted me to be its subordinate. Heh. Really interesting. Amon's mouth drew a smile. Seeing that Amon was unmoved, Scarface, who failed to lure, turned to coercion. It roared at Amon, revealing its sharp fangs, and its already ferocious face became even more ferocious. Mr. Walter, are you going to just watch like this? Amon asked. Walter had a smirk on his face. I'm just waiting for your choice, aren't I? Amon shrugged. Which do you think I would choose? A 30,000 year soul ring or a subordinate of an orangutan? Scarface felt Amon's contempt for him, and his eyes were burning with anger. He looked at Walter, knowing that he was the strongest of the four people on the opposite side, and his murderous intent was overflowing. He threw a fraud at Walter and kept insight turned on. Then, He stretched out his hand in the direction of Walter, but stole nothing. This made Scarface a little confused. He looked at his palm blankly, and for a moment he didn't understand why his innate skills that were always successful would fail. Even if the target of the theft was a human who was stronger than himself, he should be able to steal some low-level soul skills. It was the first time that he stole nothing like now. Walter made a move with a white halo in his hand, and silk threads gathered and quickly passed forward. Scarface jumped back swiftly and dodged the attack. Where he was standing, a deep mark appeared on the ground, as if it had been cut by a blade. After several attempts, Scarface, who realized that he could not steal Walter's soul skills anyway, took off the bone whip wrapped around his body, shook it twice, and looked at his opponent vigilantly. Walter chuckled, and endless silk threads flowed out from behind him, gathering into 16 sharp spider-like spears. The spears twisted and twisted like poisonous snakes, and then shot at Scarface one after another. After dodging several attacks, it suddenly found in horror that it could not move. Countless dense silk threads wrapped around it, restricting its movements. Then, 3 spears made of silk threads pierced its body, and as blood was lost, Scarface's consciousness gradually blurred. Amon's stolen soul skill returned. He immediately materialized his soul power, condensed a bullet, and then used the air bomb to push the bullet towards Scarface's head. This is a trick that combines the materialization of soul power with the air bullet. With a real bullet, it is more lethal than a simple air bullet. However, the attack distance is limited, because once the materialized soul power leaves Amon's body, it will turn back into ordinary soul power in a short time, and lose its substantial nature. Scarface's head exploded like a watermelon, with red blood and white jelly splashing everywhere. Seeing the death of their leader, the rest of the Dementors howled in fear, and fled in panic. Walter's body suddenly disintegrated into strands of silk, and then disappeared. The one who acted with Amon and the others was just a silk puppet of Walter from beginning to end. His real body was still a kilometer away. This is why Scarface's use of fraud and stealing had no effect. After all, silk puppets have no thoughts that can be delayed, and no soul skills that can be stolen. It even chose the wrong target, so it naturally couldn't work. After killing the leader of the Dementors, Walter's body rushed over at a very fast speed, and nodded to Amon with a smile. A black soul ring slowly emerged from Scarface's body. The black halo was not dazzling, but it was so dazzling that the black-clothed youth and Manos who led the way could not take their eyes away. A trace of envy and desire flashed in their eyes. A 30,000-year soul ring. Even the Soul Emperor Monos didn't have it. Seeing their inner desire, Walter smiled and said, "Do a good job and accumulate enough merits, and I can also help you." "Thank you, sir," the black-clothed young man and Manos said in unison. Looking at the soul ring that had a vague connection with him, Amon smiled. Chapter 70 The Fire Thief. When Amon was about to pull and absorb the soul ring, even though he knew that he would not retreat, Walter couldn't help asking, "Are you really sure you can absorb this soul ring? You should know that the 10,000-year soul ring is a qualitative change. To absorb it, you need not only a strong body, but also a strong enough spirit. Otherwise, the endless resentment of the soul beast before death will turn you into an idiot." Amon took it from the void, and a pair of monocles appeared in his hand, which was worn on his right eye. He chuckled. "It's just a little resentment. Please protect me, and be alert to the surroundings." As he said, a translucent worm with star-like colors and 12 links appeared in his hand. The worm kept swimming, appearing, and disappearing, as if it was constantly shuttling in the void. Walter couldn't help but look at it a few more times. It was also the first time he saw Amon's martial soul. He said with a little doubt, "Bug." Amon mobilized his soul power and pulled the black soul ring closer to him. When the distance was close enough, it suddenly shrank and wrapped around a ring of the time worm. The surging energy continued to come from the martial soul, washing Amon's body. The violent power like a broken dam caused waves of pain in the meridians one after another. The time worm clones appeared around the time worm martial soul, dispersing the energy and always controlling it within a certain range. The resentment of the scarred soul grabbing ghost leader before his death followed the martial soul into Amon's mind. It let out a shrill and terrifying roar, trying to shake the enemy's spirit. Suddenly, endless whispers sounded, some hoarse and low, some magnificent and vast, some dense and crazy. The resentment of the scarred face was almost instantly drowned by the whispers, and he couldn't even last for a second. Walter looked at the martial soul split body that was constantly splitting and guiding and diverting the energy, and was amazed. He saw that this method would damage the quality of the final soul ring and cause a certain amount of waste, but it could indeed allow people to absorb soul rings beyond the age limit. This made him feel that it was necessary to pay more attention to some children with similar martial souls in the future. Even if the innate soul power was not high, they could continuously enhance their talents through absorption beyond the age limit. Of course, Walter had investigated Amon's background and knew that he was only level 12 or 13 when he was 12 years old. After that, he continued to show his talent until he reached the current level. At this moment, he suddenly understood why Amon was mediocre at the beginning, but was able to catch up later, because his cultivation talent was constantly improving. Although Walter's guess deviated from the truth a little, the explanation was unexpectedly reasonable, which helped Amon avoid a lot of trouble. He looked at Amon and felt a little regretful. If each soul ring in the future could be absorbed across levels like this, it would not be difficult to reach the level of a great worshipper, but this was impossible because there were not so many high-level soul rings to waste. In his estimation, breaking through the soul sect and becoming a soul king, that is, the 5th soul ring, was Amon's last chance to improve his qualifications. 2 hours later, Amon opened his eyes and slowly calmed the soul power around him. A hint of joy appeared on his face, and he had gained another powerful soul skill. The 4th soul skill, Fire Stealer. Effect: you can steal a soul skill that does not exceed the 6th soul ring. The target distance cannot exceed 50 meters. It lasts for 24 hours, and the stolen person cannot use this skill. After 24 hours, the soul skill will automatically return, or Amon himself will take the initiative to return it in advance. There is only one quota for stealing. Once the stealing is successful, stealing cannot be used again within 24 hours, and the stolen soul skill can only be used once. Even if the original owner of the soul skill dies, Amon can still use this soul skill during the duration of the stealing effect. There is a possibility of failure in stealing, which is related to the level and strength of the target soul skill and Amon's own understanding of this soul skill. The more Amon knows about the soul skills he wants to steal, the greater the chance of stealing them. With full knowledge, stealing soul skills from 1 to 4 rings is almost 100% successful, while the 5th and 6th soul ring skills have a high failure rate. If the stealing fails, you can continue to launch stealing, but the soul power lost in the previous launch will not be returned. In the case of not knowing the opponent's information at all, the effect of stealing is random, and there is a high probability that the opponent's low-level soul skills will be stolen. After obtaining the 4th soul ring, in addition to the Fire Stealer skill, Amon's 1st to 3rd soul skills have a certain increase. In addition, because it is absorbed by a large margin beyond the age limit, Amon's soul power level has also risen from the original level 40 to level 45. It is not surprising that the soul power level has such a big increase. The age of the 4th soul ring should only be 5,000 years, and the soul ring of 30,000 years is a good choice for the soul emperor who is about to be promoted to soul saint. Walter saw the smile on Amon's face and said gently, "It seems that you are very satisfied with the skills you have obtained." Amon touched the bottom edge of his monocle and replied with a chuckle, "Thank you for your help. It completely meets my expectations." Monoz saw that Amon absorbed the spirit ring so easily, which might be difficult for him, and his heart was in turmoil. He felt that he might have witnessed the rise of a new strongman. "Since we have achieved our goal, let's leave. The soul dangling mountains are not suitable for staying for a long time. This place always gives me an indescribable sense of crisis, although I don't know where this sense of crisis comes from, and I have never heard of any particularly powerful soul beasts in the mountains." Walter said. Amon nodded. "The environment here makes people's spirit feel particularly depressed." A moment before walking out of the Danghan Mountains, Amon seemed to hear a gloomy and terrifying laughter echoing in the sky. The next moment, the fog in front of him quietly dissipated. He looked back at the clear Danghan Mountains not far away without any fog. He straightened his monocle and whispered to himself, "Interesting." Walter, who was beside him, had a pale face at the moment, and fine beads of sweat were faintly oozing from his forehead. Walter's eyes were full of solemnity, and he said seriously, "Go back, Monoz." And the young man in black naturally had no objections. They all silently followed Walter's somewhat hurried pace. Amon's fingers moved slightly, and several time worms fell quietly, and then he followed them. After they left, the time bugs that fell to the ground changed, and finally turned into young men wearing black robes, pointed hats, and monocles on their right eyes. One of the Amons said, "The original body really likes to push dangerous jobs to us, isn't this exciting and interesting?" Another Amon looked at the soul-dangling mountains with a smile on his face. The Amons adjusted their monocles in different postures, scattered, and walked towards the mountains from different directions. Chapter 71 Visitors from the Spirit Hall. Outside Beady City, on an empty plain, Yan Jin took back his martial spirit. Under her feet, there was a large area of land melted by magma, with dense heat still rising. A carriage ornately decorated with gems stopped not far away, and an old man wearing white clothes decorated with gold threads stepped out of the carriage. His hair and eyebrows are grey, he has a goatee, his face is thin, his cheekbones are slightly convex, and his eyes are cold and stern. Walking to Yan Jin, he glanced at the scorched earth and smiled. "Kit, what happened to the fluctuation of soul power here just now?" "Oh, you said that. I'm just practicing my soul skills." Yan Jin told the truth without any thought. "Old man, what can I do for you?" "Can you create such a big noise by practicing soul skills? It seems that you are very talented." "That's right." Yan Jin's eyes narrowed slightly. "Do you have a teacher?" "Hey, grandpa, isn't it a little inappropriate for you to ask so many questions just after we met?" Yan Jin frowned, a little displeased. "Haha, I'm sorry. I just saw a genius and was happy to see you, so I wanted to invite you to join the Spirit Hall out of habit," the thin old man said with a smile. "Marshall, Soul Hall?" Yan Jin had a strange look on his face and shook his head. "I don't want to." Seeing her refusal so directly and decisively, the old man's face turned gloomy. "Are you really going to stop thinking about it?" "Don't think about it. Ask the old man. He told me not to join." A look of vigilance appeared on Yan Jin's face, ready to summon the martial spirit at any time. She noticed the murderous intention that had just flashed away. "Old man, is he your master?" "Who is he?" the thin old man asked, stroking his goatee. "Walter, if you have any questions, go to him." "Ah, whoa, Walter?" The thin old man was stunned for a moment, looking a little stunned. "Are you Walter's apprentice? You didn't join the Spirit Hall?" "Yes, I want to participate in the Soul Master competition. If I join the Soul Master Hall, I will not be eligible to participate." Yan Jin nodded. He said that I can't compete with those golden generations. The somewhat solemn atmosphere in the air suddenly relaxed, and the thin old man's cold face became kind and cheerful. "Soul Master competition. You are really ambitious. So, Kit, work hard. We will see you again." A slightly mysterious smile appeared on the face of the thin old man, and he walked back to the carriage. Watching the gorgeous carriage slowly driving towards the North City, Yan Jin whispered, "This inexplicable guy. Amon, who is this old guy?" Amon's voice emerged in her mind. "It's very strong. The aura just now is probably on the same level as Walter." A message spread throughout the North City along the spiritual network. One by one, Amon pinched his eye sockets, or raised his glasses, and a smile appeared on his face. A contract from the Spirit Hall. As soon as the gorgeous carriage entered Beady City, the thin old man in the carriage felt uncomfortable. He opened the curtains and glanced around with wolf-like eyes. After a long time, he lowered the curtains and whispered, "Did you notice anything unusual, abnormal?" The driver was confused. "Sir, what do you mean?" "No, nothing." The old man shook his head. "Maybe it's my imagination." He frowned and muttered to himself in confusion. "It's probably just an illusion. Why do I feel like I'm being watched?" As soon as I come in, Amon and Walter left the Danghan Mountains and returned to the village that was suspected to be the training base for the dead pool of Wuhan Palace. Walter received a letter, opened it, read it, and returned to Northland City without stopping. Returning to the Wuhan main hall, He saw a thin old man sitting on a chair, drinking alone. Opposite the table, there is another chair. Walter sat on it unceremoniously, picked up the spare wine glass, and poured himself a glass. Why? Do you have time to come to my place, Salus? Walter had a faint smile on his face. What do you call this place? I don't remember. When you became the master of the North City's main palace. Salus also smiled. The two clinked glasses and took a sip. Salus said, I have seen your disciples on the road. When he mentioned Yan Jin, the smile on Walter's face was a bit sincere, and he said with a bit of pride, how is it? That little guy is pretty good. It's indeed very good. I'm afraid it's no worse than the golden generation. Salus followed Walter's wishes and said, not worse than them. Walter said non-committally, and said somewhat ostentatiously, she is 14 years old this year, and has reached level 40. When I find a suitable soul beast, I will take her to hunt for soul rings. What? 14 years old? Ceres had a look of shock on his face. A 14-year-old soul sect? I remember that the youngest person in the golden generation to break through the soul sect was 16 years old. She was 2 years early. However, Salus's shock only lasted a short time. He thought of the various expensive medicinal materials that Walter had recently exchanged in the spirit hall, and said with some confusion, you won't use all those things on her, right? How many resources have you fed her? It's not like you don't know that these things are useless if I keep them. Walter showed a hint of sadness on his face, but it was quickly replaced by pride. You have such a talented apprentice. If you don't use her quickly and train her, well, leave her alone. Salus pondered for a moment. I heard her say that she wanted to participate in this Soul Master competition, so she didn't join the Spirit Hall. I can support you to replace someone from the Spirit Hall's selection of contestants this time. Of course, the premise is that your apprentice really has that kind of strength. Walter smiled and shook his head. If you said this to me 2 years ago, I would be happy to agree, but now, it's no longer necessary. The team of Northland College is not bad at all. Walter has learned about the performance of Lei Yin, Vidiel and others in the selection through Vargas. Their strength has been recognized by Walter, coupled with the outstanding combat effectiveness of Yan Jin and the mysterious Amon. Such a team is enough to achieve a good result in the Soul Master competition. Walter does not force Yan Jin to join the team that can win the championship. He only needs a team that is not bad and can let Yan Jin play to his heart's content. Moreover, the participating team of Northland College includes Amon, Alia and Vidiel. The latter two are related to his plan for the Northland, and Amon can cooperate to a certain extent. Transferring Yan Jin now goes against his plan that he has prepared for a long time. It seems that you are optimistic about them. No, that's not right. You are more than optimistic, right? What are you planning? Based on his understanding of Walter, Seraph immediately smelled a conspiracy. Walter just smiled and said nothing. Chapter 72 Exchange of Interests. Salus' expression became serious. I don't know what kind of plan you have for this Soul Master competition, but one thing you have to know is that His Majesty the Pope attaches great importance to this competition, and her disciples will also participate in this competition. For this reason, she also took out 3,000-year-old soul bones as a reward for the championship. Originally she wanted to give the soul bones directly to her apprentice, but because of the objections of the elders, she made a certain compromise. Because this move can further expand the influence of Wuhan Palace, the two parties have reached an agreement. Don't do anything outrageous in the competition. When Walter heard about the 10,000-year soul bone, his eyes lit up, and he suppressed the excitement in his heart and said, are you telling the truth? 10,000-year soul bone, yes. Those are all left by the dead elders, and I'm very moved. Salus mentioned his previous proposal again. So what I just said, do you want to think about it again? Let's work together. It's not a problem to replace a player. Walter held his chin and thought for a moment, then slowly shook his head. No. Speaking of which, what do you want to see me for? Let's get to the point quickly. Salus sighed with some disappointment. You should have received the news, right? The current temple master in Xiandao City is about to retire, and His Majesty the Pope and the elders are discussing the successor. So, Walter raised his eyebrows. The Two people who are calling the loudest right now are me and you. You have more supporters, but I hope you can give up on your own initiative and recommend me to the position. Salas said. Walter showed a hint of understanding. You came to me to make some exchanges of interests. No wonder you would be so active in persuading me to replace someone from the golden generation. Salas shrugged. It's a pity that you seem to have other choices. It seems that I have no choice but to bleed profusely. He took out a cold jade box from the space ring and slowly opened it. The moment the box was opened, an astonishing chill emanated from the box, causing the temperature of the entire room to drop a few points. Walter's eyes narrowed slightly. He took the box slightly solemnly and looked at the items inside. This is a crystal clear lotus flower, like a lotus carved from ice and snow. There are traces of ice cracks on the petals, as if it will break at any time. This is a 30,000-year-old snow lotus from the far north. I spent a lot of effort to get it, Salas introduced. It has the effect of strengthening the foundation and improving the person's qualifications. Unfortunately, the older you are, the worse the effect is after taking it. At our age, we don't know how much of the effect will be left after taking it. I know very well that, even if I take it, I will basically not be able to overcome that barrier and break through to the level of a titled Douluo. But you are different. You are already level 88, and you still have hope. As long as it can bring you up a level, then you have a glimpse of the possibility of being banned. Salas paused and said very confidently, how about I use it in exchange for your withdrawal? If it weren't for the slight difference in my soul power level, I would never make such an exchange. He was not worried at all that Walter would not agree. If he had level 88, he would not take out Snow Lotus at all. Sure enough, Walter nodded with a smile. It seems that I made a lot of money from this business. Seeing that he had achieved his main goal, Salas smiled with satisfaction and said, give me one more head start. You arrange the Northland College team behind the scenes, right? I have a child from a relative who wants to join. Help me arrange it. A regular spot. Walter frowned in embarrassment. I still have a waiting list in my hand. If you want to be selected, you have to discuss it with the little guys. I won't object, but the only people you can replace are Rommel or Binglan, and the others cannot be moved. Salas nodded. Okay, as long as you don't object, I will arrange the rest. After Salas left, Walter looked at the cold jade box, hesitant in his heart. He wanted to take the Snow Lotus directly several times, but he stopped. Finally, he sighed and put Snow Lotus into the ring. After leaving Wuhan Hall, Salas came to the Rhodes family's villa in BT City. The Rhodes family stance favors the Wuhan palace, and they are the ones the shy, and our royal family is more wary of. Franco Rhodes, accompanied by a woman wearing heavy makeup, bowed to Salas respectfully. Uncle, he was eliminated by Brady in the Northland College internal tryout, and he has always been unwilling to accept it. The lady with heavy makeup smiled and said to Salas, cousin, has Walter agreed? Salas nodded. Of course, I still have some faith, but he just expressed no objection and seemed to be more concerned about the opinions of the young people in the participating team. He was probably trying to accommodate his apprentice. Apprentice? The heavily made up lady was startled. Is there an apprentice here? Since the Rhodes family stance was more in favor of the Spirit Hall, they were vaguely aware of Walter's influence on the Academy's participating teams. So after hearing that Salas was coming to Northland City, I asked him to intercede, but I really didn't know that Yan Jin was Walter's apprentice. I'm quite surprised too. Don't mess with his apprentice, the girl named Yan Jin. Walter is very precious to her, Salas said with a warning. It's natural. Franco wouldn't be so unwise. Walter's attitude has been taken. You can solve it yourself. Salas didn't mean to stay any longer. He explained a few words and prepared to leave. Okay, cousin, take care. The heavily made up lady smiled and watched Seraph leave. After sending her cousin away, the heavily made up lady looked at Franco. Did you hear what I said just now? Walter's apprentice. I heard it. I will never provoke him. Franco vowed. Stupid. The heavily made up lady patted her son's head. Didn't you hear it? That's a girl. A girl. Have you ever thought about chasing her? She's a disciple of Contrap. According to your uncle, she is very valued, Franco recalled Yan Jin's violent posture on the field and his nickname Mad Dog in the academy, and shook his head wildly. No, I don't want to. I definitely haven't thought about it. Yan Jin is beautiful, but most people can't bear her enthusiasm. You can think about it. The heavily made up lady said without question. A guard captain led his men to patrol the city wall point. Seeing the gorgeous carriage slowly leaving the Northland city, the captain pinched his eyes and then retracted his gaze. Captain, what's wrong? Is there something wrong with that car? Do you want to chase it back? A subordinate asked. No. Let's continue patrolling. The captain walked forward. On the sloping roof of a house, Amon's body was lying without any image. He stroked his monocle and whispered to himself, "Heh, another soul Douluo from the spirit hall. This beady city is really getting more and more lively. What is Walter planning?" Chapter 73 Enemies. Bang bang bang. There was a knock on the door of an office on the second floor of Wuhan Hall, which was Walter's office. The corner of Vargas' mouth twitched slightly as he passed by. If anyone else dared to act so recklessly in the spirit hall, he would have punished him long ago. But looking at the girl in red clothes and red hair, he sighed, shook his head, and pretended not to see it. Old man, are you there? I'm coming. Yan Jin was impatient, and after knocking a few times, he opened the door and went in. Walter looked at his precious apprentice rather helplessly and rubbed his forehead. Close the door. I want to tell you something very important today. Oh, okay. Yan Jin obediently closed the door. Although Yan Jin was vulgar, impolite, reckless, aggressive, and broke things from time to time, what pleased Walter was that she was more obedient. Of course, obedience does not include asking her to change the above habits. You have to keep what I'm going to say today a secret, including from your elder brother and younger brother. Can you do it? Walter said with a serious face. This was the first time Yan Jin saw Walter so solemn. She opened the door, exited the room, and said, "Wait for me, I'm going to get ready." She ran downstairs and whispered into the air, "Amon, I understand." A stream of light flew out from between her eyebrows and stopped on the stone pillar on one side. "This is the old man's secret," Yan Jin explained. "Well, I understand that I put my martial spirit on your side just because I'm worried that you will be in danger, or to stop you before you cause unsolvable trouble. Everyone has their own privacy, and who will be affected by excessive exploration? It's no good." Amon's voice rang in Yan Jin's ears, and the sound was concentrated into a line. Naturally, he knew this little skill of using soul power. Yeah. Yan Jin nodded and ran back to Walter's office without saying a word. "Old man, I'm ready. I will never tell anyone." Walter's eyes narrowed slightly and he frowned. He had seen Amon's martial spirit and knew how to use some insects. After thinking for a moment, he guessed that Amon probably had some means of eavesdropping on Yan Jin. But since Yan Jin himself knew about it and was willing, he didn't take any more care. At the same time, he was also somewhat relieved that Yan Jin did not deal with him, which proved that he, as a teacher, still had some weight in Yan Jin's heart. Walter's soul power circulated, and the threads covered the entire room. The densely intertwined threads isolated the inside and outside of the room, ensuring that no sound could be heard. Then, he took out a jade box that exuded a faint chill from the space ring, opened the box, and an astonishing cold air spread. "This is a 10,000-year-old snow lotus from the far north. It has the function of strengthening your foundation and improving your talent. Although it is not very consistent with your martial soul attributes, and its effectiveness will be somewhat reduced, it is still a rare treasure. Old man, you." Although he had some guesses when he saw Walter taking out the snow lotus, Yan Jin still felt unbelievable. Even if she didn't know much, she knew that this was definitely a priceless item, and it was not at the same level as the medicinal materials given to her before. Even for contrast, this is probably extremely precious. A faint smile appeared on Walter's face. "I can give it to you, but you have to do something for me. You should know that when I accepted you as my disciple, I had some purpose." Yan Jin's face was full of seriousness. "What's the matter? Kill someone for me?" A trace of hatred appeared on Walter's face. "Okay, I agree. A smile appeared on Yan Jin's face. This was right. Walter was so kind to her that it made her feel uneasy, so it was only normal for her to help him with something. She solemnly said, as long as it's not Amon, Lei Yin, or my brothers and sisters, no matter who it is, I will kill him. Why? Don't you ask who it is. Walter tried his best to calm down. Yan Jin shook his head and said seriously, it doesn't matter who it is, master. I will always remember your kindness to me. Without your help, I wouldn't be so successful. Maybe you have some purpose. Maybe you have your own demands, but it doesn't matter. You really helped me a lot, and that's enough. Amon told me that all the gifts of fate have already been marked with a price secretly. I'm also ready to pay the price. It's just killing someone. I have guessed it a long time ago. I'm not stupid. Zulian, just keep it for yourself. I will kill you. This is not a deal. It is my reward for you. This was the first time Walter heard Yan Jin call him master so sincerely, and he couldn't help but feel a little sad. He pushed Zulian in front of Yan Jin and barely smiled. The effect of this thing on me is not that obvious. If I could have taken it 10 years earlier, I would have taken it myself, reached the realm of titled Douluo, and taken revenge myself. But now, I'm already old. Don't refuse. I give it to you, so that you can have enough power to avenge me faster, to achieve my purpose faster. What I want you to do is not that easy to do. I'm already old. Just 5 words impacted Yan Jin's mind. Yan Jin stared at him blankly, and did not pick him up. This was the first time she discovered that the powerful old man, the old man in the Seoul Douluo realm, the old man who controlled the wind and rain in the Wuhan palace, was so old. His hair was grey and dull, his skin was saggy and wrinkled, his eyes were cloudy and slightly depressed. He looked like, well, an old man. Walter took a deep breath and continued, do you know why I spared no effort to train you? The resources I spent on you over the years almost consumed half of my savings. Yan Jin guessed, to get revenge faster. That's only part of the reason. The real key is that they are no longer important. The people who should have inherited them are no longer here. Walter's tone was filled with unconcealed sadness. My wife is dead, and my son is also dead. They died in the attack 13 years ago at the hands of that damn bastard. Without a son who can inherit the property, what's the use of more wealth for an old man like me? Walter closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, there seemed to be a flame burning in his eyes, a blazing fire of revenge that could not be extinguished. He didn't look at Yan Jin to avoid scaring her with his eyes. I think you should have guessed what kind of strength the person I want you to kill will have. Yan Jin nodded and said in a solemn tone, word by word, title, Dao, Luo. She adjusted her mentality. The magma in her hand surged, raised her right forearm, spread her 5 fingers covered with magma, and let the lava flow on her hand. Yan Jin said with a somewhat flamboyant and arrogant demeanor, so, who is the old man? I will burn him to ashes. Seeing Yan Jin's appearance, Walter finally smiled, and he replied solemnly, my enemy. Title, Hey Ocean. Chapter 74. The Wind Rises. 13 years ago, Ocean Douluo suddenly attacked the Wuhan palace, where my wife and son were, and they were all killed. I don't understand why he suddenly took action against Wuhan palace. Later, during the investigation, I found some clues. It seems to be related to the previous pope. It was the pope who had a grudge against him, but that is not important to me. I only know that he killed my wife and children, and is my sworn enemy. If I hadn't met you, I probably wouldn't have been able to bear the heart-gnawing pain of an ant, and I would have gone out for revenge and despair. Even if I knew I was no match, even if it was like flying a moth into a flame. Yan Jin, you gave me hope. Ocean Douluo is a powerful and famous person even among titled Douluo. The talent you showed made me see the possibility of surpassing him, so I put all my efforts into you, and spare no effort to train you. I hope you can surpass him and kill him. There was a hint of exhaustion in Walter's voice. He looked at Yan Jin, suddenly shook his head, and continued, in the beginning, I did mostly have the idea of using you, but later on, as we got along with you, I gradually had other ideas. You are very much like my son. He was so naughty and loved to get into trouble when he was a child. But he doesn't have your talent and his soul power cultivation is very slow. Walter was like an ordinary old man, talking nonchalantly, while Yan Jin stood aside silently, listening patiently, which was very rare for her who was always impatient. He suddenly sighed and said, "Forget it, it's not worth it. If you are strong enough in the future, and it is not difficult to kill Tang Heo, just go and kill him. If you need to pay a huge price to kill him, then there is no need to do it. Just take care of yourself. I hope you live well now, or if something goes wrong in your cultivation, so that you cannot pose a threat to him at all, then bury this matter deep in your heart and never mention it to others. This will bring disaster to you." Impossible. Yan Jin picked up the snow lotus. "Old man, you can't go back on your word. This is mine. That guy named Haoshan Douluo, I will definitely kill him. There is no compromise. It's not him who dies. That is his death." Yan Jin's behavior like a kitten snatching food made Walter laugh, and the sad atmosphere was diluted a little. Hehehe. Yan Jin hugged the cold jade box and smiled a little cutely. "Speaking of which, old man, why don't you accept Amon as your disciple? He mentioned it before. He is much better than me." "Amon?" Walter raised his eyebrows. "He is too rational and very good at weighing the pros and cons. Even if I train him, he will not provoke a powerful enemy like Haoshan Douluo for this. After all, Haoshan Douluo Luok is not just a person. There is also the Haoshan sect behind him." Yan Jin nodded and agreed with Walter's judgment. "But, have you ever thought that killing Haoshan Douluo is not as difficult as you think for him? It won't cause too much damage to him. He doesn't mind fulfilling his promise. If things go his way, it's not that difficult to kill Haoshan Douluo." Walter smiled. "You think too highly of him, right?" "No, old man, you underestimated him." Looking at the cold jade box held by Yan Jin, Walter said, "Take it now. I will protect you." Yan Jin took out the snow lotus and bit it down. She suddenly paused, as if she remembered something, then took the snow lotus out of her mouth and put it back in the box. "Old man, I'll eat after I go back. It's settled. I will help you kill Haoshan Douluo." Amon stood on the roof of Wuhan Palace, the tallest building in the North City, overlooking the whole city. He closed his eyes and received various messages from Amon from all over the city. Some are useless junk information, some are market rumors that are both true and false, and some are real pictures that I have seen and heard with my own eyes and ears. All information is screened and checked one by one, eliminating useless impurities, correlating and integrating the effective parts, and then making reasonable speculations and judgments. He suddenly opened his eyes, raised his right hand to stroke his monocle, and said "Ha" with a look of great interest. "The Lord of the North City is about to go to the imperial capital to report on his duties and rotate. The Rhodes family stances bias towards the spirit hall." Platinum. Bishop Salus came in a hurry and left in a hurry, the staunch supporter of the royal family and the largest nobleman in the north. Marquis Fecris and Vidiel's father, Earl Ironheart, signed a trade agreement, and the secret that Walter confided to Rock Ember. The Spirit Hall announced the prize for the champion of the Soul Master competition. 3 10,000-year soul bones. Got windy. The wind blew Amon's robe, and the hem of the black robe fluttered like a flag. He stared at the city lord's palace, the corners of his mouth raised back, revealing a smile. "It's time to take some time to visit this city lord. Knight. Amon, do you see what I got?" Yan Jin slipped into Amon's room and mysteriously took out the cold jade box. Looking at the snow lotus that exuded cold air and was as beautiful as a work of art, Amon looked a little confused. "Walter, did you even give you such a thing?" Yan Jin touched his nose and smiled. "This is not in line with my attributes. You can eat it. Although you haven't said it, I can feel your eagerness to improve your strength." After looking at Zulian with teeth marks and at Yan Jin who was still smiling innocently, he shook his head slightly. "No need, but the attributes really don't match yours. If you're not in a hurry, you can keep it for now and see if there are any other options." Amon covered the cold jade box and returned it to Yan Jin. "Huh, you don't want it. It's indeed heartwarming, but this is your thing. Don't let down your master's wishes." Amon had a smile on his face. "By the way, Yan Jin, ask your master for a book recording rare medicinal herbs. If he doesn't have it, ask him about Yang Washan." "Oh, I'll keep it for now." If you want, you can tell me at any time. Yan Jin scratched his head and left Amon's room. Watching Yan Jin leave, Amon sighed silently and smiled somewhat self-deprecatingly. I'm not Amon after all. In the darkness, threads invisible to the naked eye quietly pulled away, and they gathered in a restaurant a few streets away. Walter dispersed the thread in his hand, and the coldness in his eyes gradually disappeared. He whispered to himself, Yang Washan. How does he know about Yang Washan? Sir, the food you ordered is ready. Outside the room, the waiter held a tray with food in one hand and knocked on the door with the other. Come in and leave it alone. Okay, the rest of the dishes are still being prepared. Please take your time. The waiter restrained his right hand that wanted to reach his eyes, bent slightly towards Walter, and closed the door. Amon stared at the direction where his eyelids were pulled away, stretched out his hand to pinch his glasses. His eyes were deep. Chapter 75. Who will be the first choice? At the Northland Academy, a dedicated training ground provided for participating teams, two parties were facing off. On one side were Franco and a middle-aged man wearing dark blue clothes, and on the other side were Rommel and Lei Yin. Arya, Vidal, Binglan, and Yan Jin stood aside, making a gesture of not helping each other. What are you talking about? You want me to become a substitute and let this kid take my place? Rommel said while picking his nose and ears, while looking at the middle-aged man. That's right. I hope you can be more sensible and agree obediently, otherwise you will suffer a lot, and you may not even be qualified to be an alternate in the end. Franco raised his chin slightly and said with a proud face, just you. Rommel said with a hint of sarcasm on his face, you were eliminated by Brady and had no power to fight back on the field. You are so awesome. Shut up. Franco's face was full of anger. This was the last thing he wanted to hear people mention recently. He suddenly smiled at Rommel. You can only show off your words now. No matter how you protest, you can't change the final result. Because your teammates all support me to replace you. Rommel frowned and looked at the four people on the other side who didn't want to interfere at all. You will support me becoming a regular player, right? Franco asked them. Well, that's right. Yan Jin answered simply, support. Binglan had no expression on her face. Vidal looked at Rommel teasingly and nodded. Aliyah showed a smile and said in a voice like a silver bell, I'm sorry. Compared to a rude common like you, an elegant nobleman is more in line with our requirements. Franco's mother, Alyssa Rhodes, contacted Earl Ironhood and Marquis Fickles respectively through the influence of the Rhodes family. After promising certain benefits, she obtained their permission. Under the influence of the family, Vidal and Alia had to support Franco. In addition, they actually don't like Rommel very much, and they can replace him without going against their own wishes. Binglan comes from a wealthy businessman family. After Alyssa came to visit his father, he was so enthusiastic that he wanted to send Binglan directly to Franco's bed. Under pressure from her father, she had to agree to this. As for Okemba, it was authorized by Walter, which was part of the deal between Salas and Walter. Rommel was silent. He clicked his tongue and asked, is this the captain's decision? Probably not, at least I haven't received such news. Lei Yin patted his shoulder, so before I receive news from Amon, I will stand by your side. We are teammates. Huh. If you object, which family does your boy come from? He won't be a wild child without adults, right? Franco frowned. Mom should have already taken care of everything. Through the connections behind the team members, she can influence the attitudes of the members, thus squeezing out Rommel, a civilian with no background. He thought to himself. There were originally two targets to choose from, Binglan and Rommel. Considering that Binglan's father is a wealthy businessman, and she is not as annoying as Rommel, they targeted the latter. Vidal was stunned. How did Franco do his intelligence work? Until now, you don't even know the relationship between Lei Yin and Yan Jin. Who the hell are you calling a wild child? Yan Jin's fist stamped on Franco's face, knocking him to the ground. Classmate. Yan Jin, stop it. The middle-aged man who came with Franco said sternly. Shut up, or I'll beat you up too. Yan Jin glanced at him, feeling annoyed, and kicked Franco twice. Franco originally wanted to get angry, but when he saw it was Yan Jin, he shrank his neck. He couldn't hit him again and again, and his background didn't give him an advantage. What could he do? Wait a minute, aren't you supposed to be on my side? he hummed, a little aggrieved in his tone. I support you as the old man said, but that doesn't stop me from beating you up, Yan. Jin grabbed his collar, brought his face closer, and said with a rather weary expression, what are you dissatisfied with my brother? Is he your brother? Then why don't you stand on our side? Franco opened his mouth, but did not ask the question. You guys are really lively. A young man wearing a black robe, a pointed hat, and a monocle on his right eye walked slowly over. Amon, didn't the old man tell you? Yan Jin put down Franco and asked with some doubt. Yan's attitude made her realize that something bad might happen this time. Amon didn't seem to know about Franco's replacement of Rommel. Amon said, some people seem to only remember to contact the forces behind you and have forgotten us, the rightful owners. He looked at the middle-aged man and asked, who are you? The middle-aged man said with a bit of arrogance, my name is Sun Boyan. I'm the instructor assigned to you by the college. In the future, I will also lead the team and lead you to participate in the Soul Master competition. Instructor? Amon looked at Vidiel with a questioning look in his eyes. Vidiel quickly replied, the academy will assign instructors to participating teams. Matters such as personnel and tactical arrangements for the competition are generally decided jointly by the instructor and the team captain after discussion. Captain, someone wants to replace me. Based on the connections behind my back, I will obey your arrangement. Rommel gave a somewhat forced smile. Amon chuckled. Are you sure that there are so many people supporting Franco? It's really just a matter of background. Well, I can only say that I have used the skills of provoking wild boars that my teacher taught me very profoundly. Rommel shrugged. As for replacing you, have you asked me for my opinion? I don't agree. Amon said calmly to Franco beside him. What happened? Two men walked over from a distance. One of them is a strong man with a strong build, a resolute face, and short black hair. He is the principal of the Northland Advanced Soul Master Academy and the 71st level Soul Saint Zhan Yuming. The other person was wearing gorgeous golden blue clothes, with a neatly trimmed mustache on his lips and chin, and his face was somewhat similar to Franco. Principal, Count Rhodes, good afternoon. Alia greeted with a voice like a silver bell, and at the same time, pointed out the identity of another person for Amon. Are you having a conflict? Garland Rhodes pretended to be surprised. Yes, Lord Rhodes, we have a slight disagreement about who should play as a regular member of the team. I, as well as these 14 members, all think that Franco is more suitable than Rommel, but Amon went against everyone's wishes and insisted on letting Rommel play. Sun Boyan took a step forward and bowed slightly behind him. Principal Zhan Yuming glanced at Garland and frowned slightly. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.